desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
Hello, bonjour, Tansei, and welcome back to the final episode of Canuck is a Slur ever. I think we can all agree that this has been entirely too indulgent, and it's best to just pack the whole show in. But since we're here, I am Kelly, and with me to go down with the ship, as it were, is Tanner. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Still doing this.
Still doing this. You definitely deserve some kind of medal for this impromptu 9-part series that was supposed to be. I think 4 was my original plan. I guess I owe you now 9 guest appearances, or maybe 12, depending on how you're counting these.
We're gonna finally talk about the Titanic, and we'll use you for that one. We're gonna talk about every lifeboat individually. Gonna talk about every department on the ship individually.
And speaking of your podcast, Beyond the Breakers, a podcast about shipwrecks, loss, and lesson learned from maritime disasters, you received a compliment today or last night.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I posted the episode, as I do, on a handful of Discord servers, and I got a reply. And it's always nice to get a little reply. You hope it's going to be somebody like, "Hey, this was cool."
Mm-hmm.
And their reply, with the ping on and everything, is, quote, "Beyond the Breakers is such a good podcast. Nice and simple stuff, but really well researched and in depth." Which is true, and nice of them to say.
Right.
But I don't know if this is a normal way to interpret this, but I saw this and I was like, oh, the person replied to my podcast to be like, "I love your guest's podcast."
Stealing your thunder a little bit.
It's evocative of a situation like you're at a party and you notice somebody and they walk up to you and kind of tap you on the shoulder like, hey, like, "Oh, I apologize if this is too forward. I really usually don't do this. I'm quite shy, but I think your friend is really hot." And you go, "Oh, oh yeah, right, my hot friend. Sure. Oh no, I could totally introduce you. Yeah, totally."
It's the same feeling of when you post on Twitter or something and someone replies to it and that reply starts getting more likes than your original post. It's like a similar vein type thing of that.
Yeah, I was podcast ratioed by you, I think is what happened there.
Podmogged.
Yeah. So this is the final part of this series. There is maybe football stuff to talk about in the future. We really skipped over the 20th century of Canadian football. There's maybe enough stuff to get into, but we just really needed to end this, and I really needed to get to this stuff because I think this shit is amazing. So last time we were talking about, among other things, the Sacramento Gold Miners and the Las Vegas Posse, 2 of the unsuccessful and even more unsuccessful teams in the CFL's American expansion in the early 1990s. There's a fun little detail I found. I was scrubbing through that home opener for the Las Vegas Posse against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and they were commenting on this guy that we heard from a little bit. He was Ray Elgard. He's like one of the big all-time Saskatchewan Roughriders. He was talking about how incredibly hot it was. Because some of these guys, like if they grew up in, let's say, the southern United States and played their football there, as a lot of CFL players, come from there, they might have some degree of acclimatization to playing in hot weather, right? Like your training camp in late August, like it's still going to be pretty hot if you went to, I don't know, the University of Nevada, right? Now, Ray Elgard was a guy who was from Edmonton. So he was an actual Canadian out there in the CFL. So like he's not a hot weather guy.
Right.
Not only that, what they mentioned, the broadcast I thought was funny. They were saying, oh, he was actually questionable to show up for this game because he has the flu. Yeah. So he showed up anyway. He tied the CFL's all-time record for receptions in that half-empty stadium.
Hell yeah. It's just like he's listed on the injury report, questionable, parentheses, Canadian.
Yeah.
And then he just busts out this performance. I was thinking about we talked about the team names, obviously, the Gold Miners and the Posse. And I was thinking, posse is such an interesting name for a team because like a posse by its nature is something that's pretty hastily assembled and like not super organized.
Yeah.
So it's like it's an extremely appropriate name for this endeavor. And I think it's interesting when teams have names like that sort of indicate some level of being unprepared for what they're doing.
Yeah.
Or being like vulnerable. It's like the old baseball team, the Chicago Orphans.
Yeah.
It's like why would you choose that?
Yeah, our team is the Las Vegas tax write-off. Actually, honestly, kind of the whole Saskatchewan Roughriders team was questionable brackets Canadian, because this is another thing you can see. I really encourage people, if you really want to sit around and watch an old football video from 1994, there's a lot of fascinating stuff that happens. So they're showing in the pregame and they're talking about how hot it is. They have the camera tracking on the exit to the dressing rooms, and they're just saying, yeah, the Rough Riders are waiting inside their air-conditioned dressing rooms until the last minute, like as they're doing the anthems and stuff. They do not come out for anything other than to actually play the game.
Yeah, when it's that hot, it's like, does acclimating to it really even help? So it's like, why not just stay in the AC as long as possible?
I don't know what the science is on acclimating, but yeah, just very funny to me to be like, yeah, you're doing the Michael Jordan flu game for the second game of the season in which you lost, just so you would have tied that record anyway. You probably didn't have to show up.
Also with that, it's crazy because I know we were looking at some pretty crazy temperatures in like the 110s, 120s, and I assumed that was like the air temperature in the area. And then like your field temperature is typically going to be pretty significantly warmer than whatever the regular temperature is. So that's insane conditions to be expecting to play football in.
Like the physical field temperature is higher than the air temperature?
Yeah, because I know they showed that on the broadcast usually when it's extremely hot. Like, oh, field temperature is up to 125.
Yeah. I did put it in the previous episode when I was editing, and I wish I'd remember to throw in the slides, but I'll throw in this edit too. It's the moment they're talking about, oh yeah, he has the flu and he was questionable for this game. He's like kneeling on the field and the trainers are coming out to see him. And like, he looks like shit, honestly. Yeah, it's something else that I just love the Las Vegas Posse so much. Everything about it is so funny because it just kind of struck me when, we talked about, we read that quote about, the entertainment dollar and all the competition. And it's just so funny to imagine, like you're imagining your customers as being people who came into Vegas and are saying like, yeah, bro, we can go to the casino, we can go to the strippers, we can see some cabaret, we can go to all these events, or we could go watch the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Like, hell yeah. You'd have to trick your friend in and be like, hey, do you want to go see the Posse? You want to see some Posse? Hey, yeah, that's that Wayne Newton show we were gonna hit up. It's actually out at the stadium. If you want to go to that. Also, I just checked on eBay. I just searched Las Vegas Posse. Yeah, 82 results. There's actually some cool stuff on there. You got helmets, T-shirts. Yeah. Weirdly enough, there is a number 17 Oakland Raiders jersey that just says Juggalo on the back. There's some cool pennants. I'm going to legitimately look back at these and order one of these pennants probably. Those are cool. I genuinely, it's a good thing I'm traveling right now because I've been so tempted to buy some of this old kitschy shit. I would love some defunct sports teams shit, like game ones, because there's so many defunct teams in all these leagues. We talked about the World League of Football, NFL Europa and stuff, and all these CFL teams that folded. Like every one of them had entire multiple sets of uniforms and helmets made. I mean, I'm sure a distressing amount of it has ended up in a dump, but like, there's got to be lots of cool game-worn shit you can get your hands on. Again, I haven't looked at eBay because I know it'll be bad for me, but eventually I'll probably cave. I'm imagining my wife looking at like the bank account statements and being like, Tanner, I've noticed you spending money on, and I know it's, I know, I'm sorry, it's all the OnlyFans stuff. And she's like, no, I don't care about that. It looks like you're spending money on Las Vegas Posse merchandise. Yeah. Why are you buying Sacramento Gold Miners merch? Like, was the 49ers merch that expensive? But yeah, so that disastrous year-long effort to hang on to the Posse was far from the only dramatic story out of the CFL in the year 1994. That January, just a year after their banquet announcement fiasco, that's the my brothers won't let me play fiasco, the CFL topped themselves with a press conference fiasco. And this was the doing of a Wild Bill Hunter. He's the co-founder of the WHL, the Western Hockey League of Junior Hockey, a co-founder of the WHA, the NHL rival that brought us, among other things, the Edmonton Oilers and Wayne Gretzky and all that. And he's also the guy who tried to bring the NHL to Saskatoon. So these are a number of stories that we might be able to come back to, but Hunter coordinated with an ownership group in Orlando, and they plan to play out of the 72,000-seat Citrus Bowl, which is very funny, I think, when you just consider what our attendance numbers have been in every other game we've talked about.
That reminds me of going to Pittsburgh Panthers football games as a kid when we lived in Pittsburgh, because I don't know if they still do, but the Pittsburgh Panthers, the university team, used to play at Heinz Field, where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. And like Pitt, not like a football powerhouse program, so they would fill up maybe like half of the lowest section of an NFL stadium.
Yeah.
And it was such a bizarre game experience because you could hear everything on the field. Like, it was very strange.
Well, that's what came up. I don't know acoustics and all that, but the author was suggesting, oh yeah, the half-empty stadium might have actually worsened the echo during the anthem, which was fucking the anthem singer up. So if that is what happens with 12,000 people in a 30,000-seat stadium, what happens when you get 12,000 people in a 72,000-seat stadium? Like, you'd be getting the Star-Spangled Banner wrong with all that echo. So Wild Bill Hunter is saying, we've got this ownership group in Orlando. We're going to play out of the Citrus Bowl. And he sets up a presser in a Hooters. Sure.
Classic.
So the event was, as far as I can tell, presented to the press in Canada via satellite. I'm not sure that it was on live TV, but they were live on satellite, at least to these media people. And then the feed went live. And unfortunately, no one involved with the event showed up.
That's no way to run an event.
Yeah. So in someone's recollection, they say so somebody came on screen and it was either maybe a security person for the venue. Well, it was a Hooters. I don't know. Or it was some sort of just staffer walks up and taps the mic and says, hey, I don't think anyone's coming. So they cut the feed. And it turns out later, oh yeah, the Money in the Stadium lease were never there.
Having taken place at a Hooters, that's very Rudy Giuliani giving the press conference at Four Seasons Landscaping.
Yes.
That's similar family of events there.
The utter debacle of our next American franchise, oddly enough, begins in Ottawa. When I was talking about the CFL's many woes among its many teams earlier, I mentioned that the community-owned Rough Riders were purchased by private interests. And this was the American duo of owner Bernard Gleiberman, who bought the team for $1 with the understanding that this meant assuming $1 million in debt, and his son, Lonnie, who was made the team president. So in the middle here, we have Bernard, or Bernie Gleiberman, and next to him, as you are maybe guessing, is his son. He is 23.
He looks kind of like one of the TV lawyers that we have here in Wisconsin. He looks a bit like David Gruber.
Yeah. Wait, which one does?
The son, the youngest one.
Yeah, so I didn't do the like inflation calculator on what $1 million Canadian dollars maybe is today. But so you buy a team for $1 and you get $1 million in debt. That still feels like an incredibly cheap team to get. You've spent $1 million and $1 getting an entire sports franchise.
But you have to pay it all in toonies.
The toonie did not exist yet.
Fuck.
I think toonies were, I believe the...
Oh, I think what I was intending to say was loony. I know that the toonie also existed, but...
Well, the toonie is newer, I think. If I'm wrong, I'm going to edit this out. But I believe the loony was... I was wrong. Because we had $2 bills for, the longest time. So one source within the organization stated that Lonnie... Also, this is spelled Lonie. I'm assuming it's pronounced Lonnie.
Lonnie, yeah. Lonnie.
Because I was like, is this short for something?
Thelonious.
But his name is spelled Lonie in court documents, so that is his legal name. And yes, that is foreshadowing. One source tells us that Lonnie, quote, basically ran the Rough Riders like it was his fantasy football team, end quote. And that included firing the general manager and forcing the coaches to dress and start a player he'd signed himself. That player was named Dexter Manley. Does that ring a bell to you?
Not really.
Okay. So Dexter Manley was a former NFL star. He'd won 2 Super Bowls in 1983 and 1988, but had washed out of the league after repeatedly failing drug tests. So it's my longstanding personal policy. I don't shame people for being substance users, but it is very true that consuming lots of cocaine in your 30s does not tend to lead to peak athletic performance.
Right.
Because again, he won 83, 88. This is now 91, I believe, when they buy the team.
Worth noting that the picture, if you're just listening to it, the picture of Dexter Manley in game action, he He is being separated from an opposing player, and he is holding that other player's helmet in his hand. He's about to do what looks to be like the Myles Garrett move on Mason Rudolph.
I am not familiar.
Myles Garrett ripped off Mason Rudolph's helmet and tried to beat him with it.
I tried to beat him with it.
A couple seasons ago.
I mentioned before that in this book, there are these scanned images, but you can kind of see how shit the quality is here. This is one of the least bad ones, but you genuinely can't find other pictures of Dexter Manley in the CFL. Like, you can't find any decent pictures of these teams.
Also, I just kind of realized that the shoulder logo, because that's the Rough Riders, one of the Rough Riders, correct?
Yep. That is the Ottawa Rough Riders.
It kind of just looks like the R, like the Russell athletic clothing R. It kind of just looks like that. So it makes it look kind of like a cheap jersey you'd buy at TJ Maxx.
Okay. I'm not familiar. I would say it's still an improvement because they had this old 1876 ass block letter R for the longest time. And it was with these new owners that they said, okay, we're going to put in this new logo. This was just for their last couple of seasons they had this. But I mean, these quite possibly were, maybe they did just go to TJ Maxx or whatever store and just buy the cheapest jerseys and like, okay, it has an R on it. Let's just say that's our new logo because it looks better than what we have.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, Ed Wills, that's the author, makes the claim that, quote, Manley believed his role in the organization was to party with Lonnie and he took that responsibility seriously, end quote. So, with no GM, a bust of a player who'd led to the resignation or firing of multiple coaches, and a 4-14 record, the 1993 season was a complete faceplant for the Eastern Riders. The previous campaign, a 9-9 split that was their first non-losing one in recent memory. Not their first winning season, just their first non-losing one. I'll have to hang a banner that just says, like, 500 season.
I think with that situation of saying, oh, he's thinking he's on the team to hang out with the owner and party, it's like, that's the kind of locker room presence you can have on a baseball team. Like having a guy who's kind of just there for vibes. Like you don't really expect him to produce, but it doesn't really work as well in football.
Yeah, this guy I think was a defensive back who was needed to, make tackles and stuff. So
yeah, it's like that's not something that a football team can really afford to have. Baseball, yeah, you need a guy who's maybe just there more for his personality.
Yeah, that makes sense. This previous season where they went 9-9, it had been marred by repeated threats by the Gleibermans to move the team to Detroit. So for context, they were Michiganders. They were like Detroit people. Mm-hmm. So I mean, they're still Midwesterners, and maybe that's why you get the Wisconsin TV lawyer vibes.
Maybe, yeah.
These relocation threats became an ultimatum when Bernie tells the commissioner, quote, "Those people in Ottawa don't like us anymore. We can't stay there. Lonnie got into a fight and they beat him up." End quote. Now, like with these quotes, I mean, anytime the quote is a verbatim quote on a person that's in this book, we always kind of have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt of like, this is someone's recollection in a phone call 20 years later. Mm-hmm. But on this incident, so it was a notorious one in which Lonnie was allegedly getting his ass kicked by a group of Rough Riders fans at a place called the Yucatan Liquor Stand in Ottawa's Byward Market, allegedly stopped by the intervention of Lonnie's girlfriend, Lisa. The Gleibermans got their wish, partially. After what Wills describes as some back and forth, the CFL approved a deal that is variously described along the lines of splitting the franchise in two. I couldn't find the exact details. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. The most specific description, if we're willing to take an obscure Sports Nostalgia's website for it, is that they were allowed to bring 5 of Ottawa's players to their new roster. In any case, the core of the agreement, as described by Ed Wills, is that they'd sell the Rough Riders while paying off the team's debt, pay the expansion fees for their new franchise, and, this is Ed Wills' words, generally behave themselves. Yeah. A good sign when you have to tell your new owners, your owners of your newest team.
Yeah, in writing, okay, now behave.
I would really like to know the details of that contract. So the Gleibermans packed up their 5 players, which you'd better believe included Dexter Manley, and headed down to enjoy a very team-friendly deal where their 43,000-seat municipally owned stadium had just been renovated to the tune of $5 million. The rent was cheap. They'd be entitled to money from ads, parking, concessions. Best of all, half of their losses, up to $1 million, would be underwritten by the city of Shreveport. Sorry, did I mention they were expanding into northern Louisiana?
No.
Yeah. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
You've left Canada and you've landed in Louisiana. You can still speak French down there. That's cool.
Is there as much French up in Shreveport, or is that mostly around New Orleans? I don't know Louisiana that well.
I think you have a Cajun presence throughout, but I mean, definitely down more in the bayous, you have your people who are probably using French or Cajun French on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I thought of this when you were saying, oh yeah, the posse, describing kind of a hastily assembled group of people. I think, well, the pirates as well kind of gives a ragtag sort of disorganized vibe in a way. Although maybe that's being unfair to actual pirates.
I think of pirates as being more organized because at least that's like your job. Like that's the thing you do every day.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas like being in a posse is like a very temporary setup.
Yeah. Probably going to be a bunch of pirate historians writing in to say like, actually, pirates were very democratic. They had these really cool systems and healthcare plans. And okay, yeah.
I just finished watching Black Sails. I think I know a thing or two about pirates.
Yeah. Is there anything notable about this picture you want to describe? I mean, it's just kind of a generic purple uniform. It's not particularly exciting. They are using purple, which I always respect.
That's cool. The shoulder logo doesn't gel super well, I guess, with the rest of the jersey.
It's not the meanest looking pirate either. It's kind of got this like gentleman captain look to it.
Yeah, it almost looks like if you had a pirate on like a playing card as a face card or something.
Yeah, it's a playing card ass logo. Again, a real EA Sports created team logo.
Yeah, it's not a scary pirate. It's kind of like the old ECU pirate logo where it was very cartoonish and not very intimidating. Now they use like a skull and crossbones wearing the ECU captain hat. But yeah, if you're going to be a pirate, I feel like you should be a scary pirate.
But Lonnie, for one, was happy as a clam. He's recorded as saying, quote, "In Ottawa, it seemed like they resented stars like Dexter. Down here, we're almost on the same wavelength. It's not as much of a cultural difference for us," end quote. And to that, I would say, I feel like they resent stars when they, do not perform statistically and your team loses. Yes.
Yes, I hate the best player on my team when he does good stuff. I hate that. I feel like that's not the typical way that fans would act. It's like, yeah, if the star's underperforming, if they're getting into trouble off the field, sure, that can sour some people on your stars.
Yeah, so in his positive comments, Lonnie particularly singled out the warm welcome from the local media, who he appreciated treating them as, and this is his words, a tourist attraction, like a circus coming to town. So there's these moments where I get to feel like I'm really effective as a writer and a presenter, and they come when I get to drive home a point like that, by way of I do some extra research or some clever editorializing or some effective paraphrasing. This is not one of those times. This is one of those times where I just need you to read the following passage in its entirety. This is going to be a 2-slide passage.
The organization had tried to secure a local college for its first camp, but when that fell through, they moved into a gigantic barn on the Louisiana State Fairgrounds adjacent to their home field. There, the 70 players were housed in a dorm area located above the milking barn. They slept in bunk beds, 12 to 16 to a room. There was no closet space, air conditioning, or pillows, and players had to rent towels. Their meals were all at Western Sizzlin', a local steakhouse. Yes. Caged circus animals were kept one floor below the players. Each night, the players went to sleep in 30 degrees Celsius heat, with monkeys screeching and big cats growling. Each morning, they walked past the menagerie on their way to practice, and the monkeys would spit and throw feces at the players. The pirates also became fascinated with the tiger, and one morning they stopped to observe the magnificent beast, who casually turned, lifted his tail, and sent a stream of urine toward the players.
Like, there's no fat I can trim on those 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would understand feeling a bit like a circus.
The only thing that can improve that paragraph is a direct quote from one of the players. "It was kind of cool that you got to see tiger pee, but I'm pretty sure none of us wanted to get any on us." That's my favorite part of seeing a tiger is the piss.
I gotta see the tiger pee.
As far as the on-field product for the Shreveport Pirates, young Lonnie actually made a move that might be surprising. He hired a bona fide old football guy named J.I. Albrecht to act as a football consultant. The next few points might be a bit inscrutable, and that's because I think they take place at the nexus of insane people. So let's try our best to go through these events here.
He just kind of looks like your platonic form of a mean old man. And he also has the most enormous glasses I think I've ever seen. These aren't like big novelty sunglasses. These appear to be his actual just seeing glasses, and they're enormous.
I mean, those are coming back for reasons I don't fully understand. But yeah, you said like platonic form of a mean old man?
Yeah, he's just got that, like, he's got a very mean looking sort of expression on his face. He just looks like a mean guy.
Awesome. I could not have chosen better words. So Albrecht hires this guy named John Heward to be coach, and he's replaced a week before the preseason starts, and that's a move that one of their players publicly identifies as it's not the ideal way to start your season. Lonnie tells the media that this is over philosophical differences. In the book, Wills uses the phrasing, quote, an altercation with members of the training staff over treatment of the players, end quote. He also claims that Lonnie said he was, quote, concerned John might lose his temper or something, that he might have a fight. All good signs. I couldn't find any details on this altercation other than reporting from the Bangor Daily News that suggests that multiple members of the training staff walked off as a result. Also, per the same paper, these trainers were actually contracted out from a local hospital and not employed directly by the team. Is that weird or is that just me? I literally don't know.
Now I would think that would be weird. At least in like an NFL or like a top level college organization. I think that would be weird.
Yeah.
Although maybe they should go back to it because there's multiple occasions in the last few years where NFL training staffs have like seriously injured players because they're doing stuff that's like not medicine. Most recently, I forget who it was, but the Steelers, I think it was TJ Watt. He was injured in a training or a therapy session because they were doing...
injured in a therapy session is a hell of a phrase.
Have you heard about dry needling?
Yes. That's a physio adjacent thing.
Yeah, so that's what it was. And so like people were like discussing it and commenting on it and saying, well, this is like not like there's like huge risks involved in this. And it's like kind of surprising that an NFL team would be doing this with their star players. But who knows?
Well, and a lot of the time, this is prevalent in sports because sometimes team trainers are, I guess, incentivized by the ownership or by management to do team-friendly things. Like, basically what I'm saying is, making, like, rushing players back from injury.
Right.
This was a huge complaint that was leveled, I think, at the Edmonton Oilers for a period of time where players were coming out later and saying, yeah, the team was pushing me into playing and it made my injuries worse and it was, really shitty stuff. So to your point, them being more independent contractors might be more beneficial. And maybe this is total speculation. That's why they're fighting with the coach because the coach wants them to do team-friendly shit.
Right.
So firing this coach could have honestly been a good move, but given everything else that's going to happen with this team, I'm not sure if it's anything better than, a lateral transition. So this J.I. Albrecht, at 63 at the time, he was an intensely old school guy. He'd gone blind in one eye as a boxer at age 18. That's kind of why he looks he's kind of like a pirate in a way in that picture. So he literally got his eye fucked up boxing. And he brings this mandate of no earrings, no long hair, no beards to this team, which you'll remember has this, I wrote in here to franchise player, but I mean, he's just kind of a boat anchor, I think, but a player who's notorious at this point for partying and drug problems.
Just seeing his face and hearing, like, I can hear this in his voice. I can guess exactly what his voice sounds like just hearing the no earrings, no loud music in the locker room, no backwards caps.
Yeah, very much so. Let me just double check. I'm going to look him up. I don't want you to look him up. American Canadian. Okay, he's born in New York.
Oh, hell yeah.
St. James, New York. Okay. So regarding this eye injury, J.I. Albrecht in an interview recounted, quote, when I lost my eye, my mother told me I'd be ugly for the rest of my life, but that at least I'd be fascinatingly ugly, end quote.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you can spin that into a pretty good career. I mean, there's many character actors who get lots of very good work by just looking a little weird.
Yeah, and maybe an even better look into his psyche is going to come from this excerpt here.
One time at dinner, when 10-year-old J.I. said to the maid, "Pass the potatoes," a knife slammed quiveringly between his fingers and into the table. "Say please," said his father. "What if you'd stabbed my hand?" said J.I. "If I'd wanted to stab your hand," said his father, "I would have."
Cool.
Okay.
Cool childhood. I think when we're looking at the actual sources and context, it is probably most accurate to say if this is not what his childhood was actually like, this is what he wanted people to think his childhood was like, at minimum. So that writing that we read, it comes from an article for the Ottawa Sun, which may be our best insight into the exact kind of crusty old guy J.I. Albrecht was. It was written by a sports journalist named Earl McRae, and I came across him independently in my research as a guy being memorialized in a 2023 Instagram post from Lonnie Gleiberman himself. Lonnie tells us that one of the Canadian Football League's specific instructions was, quote, most of all, never talk to Ottawa Sun reporter Earl McRae, who the league considered enemy number one in the media, end quote. But he likes him. Lonnie thanks this man, who dies in 2011, for being kinder to him than anyone else around the CFL. So I do think it's a bit telling that all of these people like each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, pictured in that post, we're not going to read the whole thing out, but so on Instagram, Lonnie Gleiberman is posting a newspaper clipping, right, from the 90s. And so this article that Earl McRae wrote has a sensational description of Lonnie being beat up by those fans in Ottawa back in 1993. So the fact that Lonnie has included this in his Instagram post, I'm taking that as a tacit endorsement that the incident definitely happened. But this 2007 piece by Earl McRae in the Ottawa Sun is shockingly revealing, and it describes J.I. Albrecht's current state as he lay in a nursing home, then at the age of 76. I'm not going to read quote unquote for everyone. I'm just going to give you rapid fire the 3 sections that I have excerpted as the most telling ways as how he describes this dying man.
Mm-hmm.
His descriptions range from the diaper for his uncontrollable bowel movements to the oozing sore on his buttocks, and even the pain-killing drugs for the damaged prostate, the pain of which makes him scream out to God during the day and in the middle of the long, dark night.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's exactly how I reacted when I found this article. I just asked, what the fuck is going on? I cannot...
Don't put that in this.
No, I said this so many times, and the whole article, I'll link this one too if people want to read it. The whole article, it is much weirder than I'm going to make it sound, if you can believe it. So McRae, he's painting a vivid picture, not just of J.I. Albrecht's physical trials, but his emotional ones as well, as Albrecht agonizes over his son's Rod's suicide, begging Rod to apologize for God, for the sin of suicide, begging Rod to, quote, please have Satan stop hurting me, and begging McRae himself not to leave the room, telling the journalist he's lonely, that he doesn't get many visitors, that he doesn't want to die. So this is why McRae, apparently with J.I. Albrecht's blessing, he publishes the mailing address and phone number for the old man's room in the nursing home in the Ottawa Sun. I cannot stress enough that J.I. Albrecht is still alive when this is published, and he lives for another 9 months. So, I guess it is kind of thoughtful to say, this guy's lonely, please write him letters. It's just wild to see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a bit much. Jesus.
Yeah. So this article, as I'm kind of portraying, he goes in person to the nursing home to interview him to write this article, kind of memorializing this guy who's, I want to say on some level, his friend.
Do you know why the headline above it says casting call lands luscious Lisa? Is that from a different?
To be clear, you're reading the article that Lonnie has posted on Instagram.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Lisa is, I mean, God, are we just going to read the whole thing? This guy seems to have nicknames for everyone involved. So, okay, I'm just going to read the first section of it. It's casting call lands luscious Lisa. The National Enquirer and People can't be far behind, but the Sun is proud and honored to bring you the latest scoop in the never-ending saga of Cuddles Gleiberman and luscious Lisa Cole, whom the last we heard were Splitsville, but still friends. Right, so Lisa, he's calling Lonnie's girlfriend luscious Lisa Cole. He's calling Lonnie Cuddles Gleiberman. Okay. I don't know. It's he's doing like the Trump thing of nicknaming everyone.
Luscious Lisa over here. We love luscious Lisa.
Yeah, and then he moves on to say, but first, some background to refresh your memory of the greatest love coupling the world had ever seen, rivaled in its fame and publicity only by that of Ivana and the Donald. So,
oh, perfect.
Trump mentioned. Yeah. I should also clarify for people who don't know, The Sun in Canada is a chain of newspapers it is like the right-wing tabloid, garbage pile newspaper. It's, I guess, maybe kind of like our Daily Mail kind of thing.
The kind of paper that would be racing the National Enquirer for stories.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, both of those, that kind of makes People by comparison seem like an academic journal.
Yeah, so I'll kind of skip here. So he clearly likes to write in sensational ways. He says the infamous rumble at the Yucatan liquor stand when teeny tiny Cuddles was pounced upon by a swarm of rednecks who were in the process of pummeling him to within an inch of his life, when out of the smoky shadows came the flying fists, elbows, and knees of luscious Lisa, and the rest is like cut off because, I don't know, because Lonnie's the old guy who can't frame a picture correctly. Okay, so yeah, he's writing this article about how the guy's ex-girlfriend got cast in a movie. I don't know what the point of this shit is. Like, so that's that article that he wrote. There's no date on this paper, and Lonnie doesn't tell us. He just is talking about the guy. All right, so that's how Earl McRae likes to write, just as a regular journalist. Going back to this article is 2007 is when he's writing about the dying J.I. Albrecht that he visits him. So he's in person in his nursing home, and he takes the opportunity to finally solve a mystery that's plagued him his whole career. And the Canadian media at large for 5 decades, it's a question that maybe you have it in your head now after I've repeated the initials this many times. What does JI stand for?
It stands for just one eye.
Oh, yeah, I mean, kind of. So as he's writing in this article, he says, oh yeah, Albrecht once told me years before, because he's been asking him for years, right? So the answer that he gave him years before was, quote, "It's just J.I. Some say it means justifiably incognito. Others, Jesus incarnate. Both are appropriate, but wrong. My real name is J.I. Just J.I.
It's like the S in Ulysses S. Grant, but it's for his whole first name.
Was the S nothing?
No, Grant didn't have a middle name, like a given middle name.
Okay.
And then the S came up later when he was at West Point, I believe. All of the other students had a middle initial, and I think they just like gave him S because his mother's name was Simpson, I think. So they just gave him S. So there was a connection. It wasn't just totally random, but he didn't like use it, I don't think.
Well, let's peel back this mystery here. To hear him tell it, Earl McRae, he's just about to step out the door. He asks again and finally gets the answer he sought for so long to what he calls, in his words, quote, the greatest mystery and secret in football. And the answer is that this only child's birth certificate simply read Baby Albrecht, that his mother nearly died giving birth to him, to the point of his father being asked bluntly by the doctor whether they should save his wife or the child, that his father demanded both. And that's exactly what happened, miraculously, that this lifelong moniker came from what his father had said next. I'm going to let Earl McRae's own writing in closing the article explain what that means.
That's my real name, Earl. That's the truth. That's what my parents named me. They weren't allowed to use it on a birth certificate, and they knew a name like that would cause me too many questions and explanations throughout my life. So they shortened it to J.I., just J.I., for my real name. Just incredible.
What?
Jesus.
Yeah. Jesus incarnate.
Jesus. Just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's true. I mean, I'll say it again. The whole article is still weirder than this. So back to 1993 and the Shreveport Pirates. Now, like Bernie Gleiberman, the owner, just incredible Albrecht had a useless Nepo baby, a different son, not the tragic one, that he needed to give a job to. And this son at least tried to tell him, hey, you can't run a football team like it's the 50s. Mm-hmm. To which J.I. challenged, watch me. Both were fired a few weeks later. And the Shreveport Pirates proceed to go 0-14 to start the season.
Nice.
Mercifully improving to 3-15 in their last few games. Even the right people with the right business plan and the right football mindset, I would argue they would have run into problems. Because if you'll recall what happened at the intersection of the CFL schedule and the Nevada climate, the hot and dry climate, well, what is Louisiana like in June?
It's pretty hot and wet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what happens if the Posse go there?
I mean, usually that's a good thing, but I don't know in this situation.
Well, I mean, they did beat Shreveport somewhere. That was the, I said in the earlier episode, I just said that the Posse beat the worst team in the league, and that was the Pirates.
Just the thought of going, someone who lives in the greater Bossier City, Shreveport area, and being like, what do we want to do today? It's like, well, let's go sit in the 43-degree, 100% humidity heat and watch our local Canadian football team lose.
Yeah, and like lose badly. It's genuinely, as I was going through this book, because I think the book talks about these teams in this same order as well. So you're reading about the Las Vegas Posse playing in, 40 Celsius, blistering heat. And you think, what could possibly be worse than this? And it's, right, then you get here. It's worse if it's the same temperature and humid.
Yeah, like that I can't even imagine. Like, spending the summers as a kid in North Carolina, like it gets pretty humid in the summers there, but it's just like Louisiana is like a whole different beast.
Honestly, almost every element of reading through this and going, yeah, what could possibly go worse than the Las Vegas Posse? Well, the answer is pretty much always the Shreveport Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Shreveport also is a very special place culturally. One Canadian sports journalist spoke of trying to order a local brew and being told by their server that it was N-word beer. Another related his experience of trying to reach the Pirates' home stadium. Quote, "We phoned 6 cabs. They all said they'd have someone right over. Finally, someone says, 'We don't go there. It's too dangerous. If I were you, I'd get the hell out of there.'"
What year is this? 97?
94. So
94.
Yeah, we'll catch up on the timeline of the teams in a little bit. But yeah, this is the first season for the Shreveport Pirates is 1994. The same sports writer claimed he was greeted at the team's offices by an equipment manager brandishing a revolver who claimed he needed it due to having been robbed twice. I'm not clear whether he meant on the job or not. I guess it doesn't really matter. Also, revolver is my word because Ed Wills writes holding a magnum, and I was like, what does that actually mean? I look it up. Magnum is just a caliber of bullet?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an actual gun. I didn't know that. I'm not a gun person.
I think people are mostly thinking of like a 357 revolver when you're thinking of a Magnum.
Right. That's why I put in revolver. I'm like, that's what the guy means for sure. But he's got a gun. To his credit, thieves did break into the stadium in 1994, and that's specifically into the visitors' dressing room during a game. And the team they robbed blind was, appropriately enough, the Las Vegas Posse.
Also, if it's not too intrusive, what size shirt do you wear? Does an XL work? Because they have a vintage original 1994-95 CFL Shreveport Pirates orange polo shirt. You could look like you're on like the coaching staff.
I'm glad you're locked into this episode topic.
I am. I'm exploring all of the avenues of what kind of sweet merch can I get out of this?
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll offline my merch interests. Maybe we'll get something. Or more of a medium, I'm going to say. I mean, I feel like in a cowboy sense, robbing the posse is the plot of some kind of like old Western movie.
Yeah.
Also very funny that these guys who could barely get paid by their franchise, like these are the last people who need to all lose their wallets at once.
Yeah. I mean, you feel doubly bad for them because it's like, come on, have a little pity on these guys.
Yeah. Right. So describing this incident, the specific phrasing that Ed Wills used is during a Posse Pirates game, which really hits different when read aloud. Well, the Posse Pirates, can I try out? Because I have been training for this my whole life. Actually, Posse Pirates is a slur against lesbians, and it's very problematic.
Yeah, there's that too. You're gonna have to bleep that one out again.
Yes, I know. God damn it. At the conclusion of that calamitous campaign, Lonnie Gleiberman's response was simply,
"Knock on wood, but it would be really unlikely for us to repeat last year. We had 15 knee operations, 2 coaches, 3 rainstorms, and 14 straight losses. We had everything possible go wrong last year."
One might argue, I don't know, I think maybe half of those are direct consequences of your actions, Lonnie.
Yeah. Well, and like 3 rainstorms for Louisiana doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, again, I don't know the climate of Louisiana, but
I mean, granted, I don't know that it rains that much, actually. I don't think it's like Florida-ness. I think it's just wet, for other reasons.
Again, summer rainstorms in Louisiana. Well, that can't happen again. Like, can't it? It's like playing in Winnipeg and being like, oh, we had all these blizzards during our games. Well, that can't happen again. It's like, yeah, it can. You live in Winnipeg. You're playing in November. Also, 15 knee operations, when considered in the context of the athletic trainers were fighting with the coach, again, I wonder if there's an organizational issue here rather than bad luck. I mean, anybody who has followed any sport, I don't care what sport you're into, you know what the punching bag of your team's league is. What are the chances of another 2 bad years in a row? You can have 10 bad years in a row. You can have 20 bad years in a row.
Yeah, I mean, there's football fans now that have never seen their team even be competitive. It can go on a long time. I mean, I was a White Sox fan as a kid, and let me tell you, a team can be bad for 20 years.
Yeah, and again, 2 coaches, definitely your fault. 100% your fault. Yeah, so this ownership duo, they claim to have lost $3 million in their first 2 seasons. For what it's worth, it's hard to say how reliable their numbers are. Bernie Gleiberman might be up there for one of the most sued men alive. Well, he's not alive now. but one of the most sued men there's ever been when it comes to matters of non-payment. So Albrecht, Heward, that's the coach they fired in Shreveport, and Ron Smeltzer, the coach they fired in Ottawa, would all end up on a long list of people who took the man to court over their paychecks. The Pirates did improve to 5-13 in their second year in 1995, but it didn't matter. After a desperate flailing attempt to relocate to Norfolk, Virginia, they folded. This town in the Deep South didn't work, but what about this town? Oh, I'm sorry, Norfolk is probably not Deep South. Don't write in.
Right. Now, also, they would be stepping on another pirate territory if they moved to Norfolk, because in Hampton, right around the corner from Norfolk, there's already the Hampton Pirates that play there, the university.
And the Norfolk Admirals, I believe, in hockey.
Oh, okay.
So part of the reason the move to Norfolk failed was that Norfolk did their homework and called Shreveport city officials to ask, well, hey, what was the ownership like? And this included,
what's the deal with these guys?
Yeah. This included concerns over an incident wherein Bernie had his antique car impounded by the federal government as his lawyer was trying to spirit it out of a museum for him, but ran out of gas in the midst of a non-payment lawsuit from the company that had provided the Shreveport Pirates scoreboard. Does that make sense?
So it was stolen from a museum where
no,
it
he
had
lent
been...
it to a museum, but then he didn't pay the company to make their scoreboard, and so the company is suing him, and for whatever reason...
Oh, they took it out of the museum.
So again, Bernie's the actual owner, the dad here, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
He lends his car to the museum. He gets into this big lawsuit that he hasn't paid the company, which he hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand the legal applications here, but the U.S. federal government is trying to basically force him to pay up. So he's panicking that like, oh, the government's going to go get my car that I lent to the museum.
Okay.
So he sends his assistant to go get the car from the museum and like, just get it the fuck out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And the museum staff are like, well, I guess we can't stop the person or do anything. It's not illegal to steal your own vehicle that you lent to us.
Right.
But then the guy runs out of gas on the side of the road and then like federal agents catch up and then impound the car anyway. Yeah. Normal stuff.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I like any story that involves like I guess you couldn't really call this a heist from a museum, but like we had a story a while back where there were some artifacts in a museum in Michigan that was like raided by the National Parks Police Department. Like anytime a museum gets raided is pretty, it's an exciting moment.
Yeah. As I recall from reading about this stuff, there's one article or another where Bernie is talking to the press and he's saying like, look, I'm being oppressed here. This is government overreach. They're impounding my car over a non-issue of a lawsuit. And I don't know, maybe it's true. Like maybe this is not really what the government should be doing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I also just don't care. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would be happy to agree. Yes, this problem is not solved by the government impounding your car. This problem is solved by an angry mob just kind of dragging you onto a gallows and guillotining you.
Mm-hmm. Now that's something that people would come out in the 100-degree, 100% humidity heat to watch, probably.
The people of Ottawa absolutely would have, based on everything I've read about how Ottawa felt about the Gleibermans. Now, for what it's worth, the city of Shreveport didn't blame the CFL. One municipal consultant said at the time, quote, "We would like another team here without the Gleibermans," end quote.
Well, I mean, soon they would get the Bossier Shreveport Battle Wings of the Arena Football 2 League, I believe.
Christ, what a bleak sentence.
I remember them from when I would watch arena football back when that was like a thing.
The Battle Wings?
Yeah, I think they were called the Bossier Shreveport Battle Wings.
My God.
Okay, their mascot was just like an eagle. Battle Wings. That sounds like a cheap knockoff Transformer or something that you'd buy for a kid because the Transformers are too expensive.
Yeah, all of these weird, I was going to say minor league teams, but that's me calling the CFL a minor league team. But all these weird kind of expansion team shit is just, it's always some formulation of like, we have X at home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look forward to the Beyond the Breakers bonus series where you teach me about Arena Football League.
I watched a good bit of it when I was a kid. I liked the New York Dragons.
New York.
Yeah.
Love the Dragons. Hate St. George.
I actually bought, my dad bought for me a New York Dragons arena football in New York when we were there. So, yeah.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So the city is like, we don't blame the CFL. The CFL is like, we don't blame the Gleibermans. They allowed them to buy a majority stake in the floundering Ottawa Renegades. As a quick catch-up of our timeline, the Gleibermans, they buy the Rough Riders in 91, sell them in 93, and go down to Shreveport, which, fails in 2 seasons. Then the Ottawa team that they sold off went through 2 more owners before folding at the end of 1996, ending that 120-year-old franchise. A new ownership group founded the Renegades for the 2002 season in Ottawa and managed 3 losing seasons on their own before the Gleibermans rocked up to training camp in 2005 because they bought a 51% stake with the existing ownership group. They rock up to training camp with a decade-old truckload of Shreveport Pirates gear and office supplies to help save money.
Just a bunch of Shreveport Pirates, like pens and notepads and stuff.
Yeah, but it's also just very funny to be like, yeah, you're on the practice squad. You have to wear the Shreveport Pirates jersey. Sadly, not even Lonnie's infamous Mardi Gras promotion that encouraged female fans to whip him out for a chance at $1,000, not $4,000, a chance at $1,000.
Jesus.
Yeah. Not even this Mardi Gras promotion could salvage the season or the franchise, and the Renegades were put to sleep after another bad year. It's almost too bad that these two weren't able to stick around a little longer. As Lonnie would later tell it, during the time he and his father were running the Renegades, he'd been talking up then current CFL Commissioner Tom Wright on an idea that had been floated to him and his father, expansion into the United States.
Nice.
Just one more U.S. expansion, bro. I promise, bro. It's going to work.
One more. If we get enough of them there, get a good foothold, and then they can't push us out.
Yeah, this is like 10 years after this stuff has failed. Now, reflecting later in 2012, Lonnie showed at least the smallest hint of contrition, telling the Ottawa Sun, quote, I'm presuming he's talking to Earl McRae, quote, some people are always going to blame me, put things on me. I had a lot of learning to do. You don't know how much you don't know until you know. I mean, you're technically not wrong.
Yeah.
Mercifully, the league did not allow the duo near the Ottawa Red Blacks club that started playing in 2014, nor did they allow that franchise, which had legally inherited all previous Ottawa branding, to call themselves the Rough Riders again. That is not a joke. I don't know if they tried to do it with the Renegades, but when they started up the Red Blacks, there was like at least one news article saying the CFL has allowed the Saskatchewan Rough Riders to veto this team resurrecting the Rough Riders branding.
So like current day CFL, there is only one Rough Riders, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Ottawa team is called the Red Blacks, but they had tried, or at least the fans were wanting them to just come back as the Rough Riders after the failed experiment of the Ottawa Renegades. And the CFL was like, we're going to leave that up to Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan's no. Which is also funny because the Ottawa Rough Riders were the older team, and they, this happened back in the 20s. They didn't get to veto the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. And then 90 years later, it's like, oh no, now we can't have 2 Rough Riders.
I'm just brainstorming ideas for team names. Give me some names, guys. And I swear to fucking God, if anyone says the words Rough Rider, if anyone so much as starts to form an R, I am going to lose my shit right now.
Can we be the Tough Riders?
the Buff Riders. That would be a good name.
Next person to say Rough Riders is getting pistol whipped.
Hey, what's that Canadian football team you like so much?
Rough Riders?
Oh, the Rough Riders.
There's a certain subset of, I think, CFL fans that are just like, oh yeah, okay, we get it, Rough Riders joke, we've heard it, but like you can't keep doing this if you don't want to be made fun of. You can't seriously consider making your third incarnation of this team going back to the one of the other 8 teams in the league's name. Pushing aside the obvious questions like, why do people like this just get to keep failing sideways? Some people might be wondering, how does some American real estate guy get into the CFL anyway? Not to say that an American businessman couldn't foster a genuine love for the Canadian game and earnestly tried to build a winner. Just look at Fred Anderson and the glowing praise his quarterback David Archer had for him in Sacramento. Ed Wills writes that Archer was clearly moved when reflecting on the gold miner's owner and said regarding Anderson's 1997 death, quote, "It was a sad day when he passed. It was like losing a family member. Fred was a gentleman," end quote. Now, of course, you can say a nice thing about any dead person, and the obituaries of Bernard Gleiberman from last year are proof positive of that. Take, for example, the one from the CFL Alumni Association, which called him, quote, "one of the most influential figures during a challenging time for the CFL," and also one who, quote, "made his money in real estate," end quote. Now, the reality is that Bernie's money was made by his dad in real estate, who was then thoughtful enough to die when his son was only 17, leaving young Bernard with a rich inheritance of land holdings. Yeah, self-made millionaire. I built this all from scratch with my dad's investment properties that I inherited before I was an adult.
Tale as old as time.
So again, Lonnie is not the only annoying failing upward son here. They come from a long line of failing upward. Publications like the Ottawa Citizen were happy to call Bernard a hugely successful developer while conveniently ignoring all the non-payments, including over $100 million in lawsuits he faced over defaulted loans. I would say not a great look for the guy who'd been named to the board of low-income housing in Michigan by the governor and later made its chairman.
That type of talk about this type of person is so similar to, I think the obvious comparison is Donald Trump. When he's running for president, and
Donald Trump? Non-payment?
Everyone is like, oh, well, he's
non-paying real estate developer.
He's going to run the company. He's going to run the country like a business. And it's like one of his businesses. Cause that doesn't sound very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the idea, he's such a great businessman. He's such a good deal maker. He's like constantly in debt and being sued and in court. It's like, I don't see the appeal there really.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think that this Donald Trump guy is not very good.
Yeah. I'm starting to think we should not elect the corpse of Bernie Gleiberman president after a term of the corpse of Donald Trump and a term of the corpse of Joe Biden president. But anyway, the obituary for the Citizen was perhaps the most egregiously knob-glazing of them all.
Knob-gleebing.
Sure.
Bernie Gleiberman was a lot of things. Optimistic, persistent, caring, a good person, beloved by others, a believer in the people that work for him, and a good father.
She glebe on I don't know. Yeah, so good father. If you want an idea of what Lonnie thought a good father was, quote, my dad and I were not super close when I was growing up. He was very good to me, but we didn't talk a ton, end quote. Although he added that they bonded once he got into business, explaining, quote, I liked showing him I might not have been as incompetent as some people thought I was in the world of football, end quote.
That's love.
Guys, you know what? Honestly, if your son sucked this bad, for you not to tell him that he sucks bad is maybe actually that's the most loving father you can be to this Lonnie Gleiberman. It's just so funny to be like, yeah, well, my mom says I'm special. My dad says I'm not bad at running football teams. Lonnie also tried to stake the claim that Shreveport was his idea and his dad loved Ottawa, which could be true, but is certainly at odds with the stories that Ed Wills collected for the book. More to the point, though, the memorializing article which really stuck out to me was one entitled Remembering Lonnie Gleiberman in the Winnipeg Free Press by journalist Steve Lyons. I have to remind everyone, Lonnie was still and is still alive. Lyons wrote this piece in early 2021 when everyone was very bored and the CFL had entered into discussions on collaboration with the XFL, which had recently been purchased by The Rock and his ex-wife, Danny Garcia. Starting out by stating his belief that, quote, to this day, I still think he phoned the wrong Steve, end quote. Lyons defended Lonnie against allegations that he'd been, quote, a spoiled rich kid who didn't know what he was doing, end quote, by explaining, quote, while his youthful exuberance caused him to make a mistake here and there, the kid had some moxie, end quote. I contend that I don't think those things are really mutually exclusive. Like, sure, the spoiled rich kid who doesn't know what he's doing has some moxie.
I can see that.
I'll give him that.
Not enough moxie these days, I think.
I think Lonnie Gleiberman had a little too much moxie, to be honest. At the time, this article we were reading from by Steve Lyons, it would have been our best insight into how the Gleibermans got started in Ottawa to begin with.
Lonnie loved the 3-down game and was interested in finding out everything he could about the CFL. He told me he wanted to try to bring an expansion team to Michigan. For a few months, Lonnie would call me every day to talk football. We would talk for hours. He had followed the league his whole life, and he wanted to be part of it. His father, Bernie, was a real estate mogul, and Lonnie had his blessing to pursue an interest in the CFL.
So you might find that convincing, but this retelling is undercut by what I would call a much more plausible source, and that is, again, Lonnie Gleiberman's Instagram. This is quite recent. This is October 15th, 2025.
Oh.
Yes, this is hot off the presses.
Almost exactly 2 months ago.
Yeah. So he writes like an old person. So I did a lot of cleaning up for like spelling, punctuation, capitalization, extra spaces.
Writing like an old person, you show it and it's just like Nordic runes.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say boomer typing, but this guy is firmly a Gen Xer. It's just what you do when you become in your, 55 plus or something. You just start doing this where you use extra spaces and everything. I'm going to read that post to you. Fresh out of college, my friend Luther said we should go to a CFL game. We decided to get press passes by claiming that we were representing my dad, who was interested in buying an expansion CFL team. My dad had no idea we were doing this. The CFL League office kept inviting us up for games. Word leaked out to CBC television, and they called me up and said they wanted to interview me about CFL expansion, so we went along with it. Afterwards, John Candy invited Luther and me to the Toronto Argonauts games. Remember, this is when Candy is still alive and the one of the co-owners of the Argonauts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John Candy invited Luther and me to the Toronto Argonauts games. He had us in his box at the games, took us out after the game to bars, restaurants. What had started as a way to get press box seats was getting out of control. We started feeling guilty. After about the third game, he asked me when my dad was going to come up. We could sense he was starting to wonder about the legitimacy of two 23-year-olds being in charge of a complex business deal. John called my dad's office the next week. I had to explain to my dad before he took the call why John Candy, the actor, was calling. I explained that we had been kind of misrepresenting things to the CFL. My dad took the call and then came up to me and said he is flying to California to meet John Candy about buying the Ottawa team. A few weeks later, I was moving to Ottawa and starting my unsuccessful career in the CFL.
What a Ferris Bueller-ass situation.
Yes. And also just this, a perfect encapsulation of, this is why, to me, he was a good father. And, the exact way that, failing upward works is you scam your way into getting some box seats at a CFL game by telling John Candy your dad's going to buy the team. And then your dad's like, well, we have to save face. I guess I'll buy the team that I have no interest in.
That my chud son scammed me into buying, basically.
Yeah, we have to save face. So me and my small adult son are going to run this 120-year-old football team into the ground. So they have to fold permanently. That'll salvage my reputation as a businessman. Perhaps the best final word on Lonnie and Bernie comes from Ron Smeltzer, the journeyman coach who'd worked for 5 CFL teams, including a year with Las Vegas as their offensive coordinator, following his firing from the Gleiberman-owned Rough Riders, after which he admitted to the media he was, in his words, somewhat relieved.
That's good.
According to Ed Wills, Smeltzer was more than happy to talk about his experiences in the CFL for the book, even those with the posse. But the author describes an icy silence when he asked about the Gleibermans, followed eventually by, I don't want to talk about them.
Just defeated.
Yeah. Oh, my God. It's very funny to be like, oh, yeah, we practiced in the parking lot. It was amazing. The owner was lying to the league about how many season tickets he sold. Oh, I don't want to talk about them.
Uh-huh.
And I gave this tiny bit of credit to Lonnie about him being like, oh yeah, I guess I made some mistakes. But he kind of reveled in the villain role. There was this article, like one of the few times you hear from him as an adult is there was this stuff going on in Ottawa where the owner of their hockey team, Eugene Melnick, was absolutely making himself, public enemy number one in the city. And so somebody wrote a news article about, finally, like the Gleibermans are no longer the most hated sports figures in Ottawa. Like this is after they were no longer involved in teams, right? This is like the 2010s. Mm-hmm. But somebody goes to interview Lonnie and he's like, well, they should start doing nice things because I don't want to be, no one wants to be second place. I want to be the most hated man in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. In addition to Las Vegas and Shreveport, the CFL expanded into a third city in 1994. So just again, to clarify the timeline, Sacramento joins in 93. Then they add Vegas, Shreveport, and this other team in 1994, which brings them up to 4 teams, right? Mm-hmm. Now, this one, real geography heads will recognize as being actually somewhat close to Canada, Baltimore, Maryland. I know this may be a lot to take in after what we just read about in the last 2 places, but the ownership in Baltimore went and did something really crazy. They hired competent football people who built a functional team, featuring names as delicious as Tracy Ham, Mike Pringle, and to wash it down, a guy you might have heard of before named OJ.
Hell yeah.
I'm assuming you've heard of OJ Briggins.
Yes, that's the OJ I was thinking of.
Yeah, the Juice Briggins. Mm-hmm. That's not to say they didn't make it interesting. Along with the Pirates, they were officially granted a franchise only 4 months before the preseason started. By comparison, the Posse had almost a year of preparation, and the Gold Miners had been able to just retool an existing franchise before that. We already know how things went in Shreveport, and even they'd been able to bring some components down from Ottawa, but in Baltimore, they actually pulled it off. They assembled a team, sold tickets and sponsorships, and even renovated an aged and decrepit stadium in time to start playing. As far as I can tell, they really only hit one notable snag, and it might answer a question some listeners have. Because there's people, not big sports fans, but it's hard not to just, get knowledge by osmosis of things like the NFL. You play, let's say, NFL Blitz and N64. You just know what the teams are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some people might be saying, okay, wait, does Baltimore have an NFL team?
That's a great question. What year is this happening?
This is 1994 when Baltimore did not have an NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 years earlier, are you familiar with the story of how the Baltimore Colts left Baltimore?
Yes, very familiar. That's one of those great stories in American football.
I mean, do you want to tell it in a minute or?
I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I know that the owner, who I think at the time was the same family who owns it now, the Ursays.
Yes.
It was in the 80s, like early 80s. I don't know what year it was.
I think it was a solid decade before this. It was around 1980. I think it was 84. I don't think I wrote it down, but it was about 84.
Okay, so it shows Baltimore Colts ended 1983. So anyway, the most salient part of the story is that there was no like announcement that this was going to happen, and then basically just one night, the good people of Baltimore just see, hey, there's a shitload of like moving trucks and stuff at the Colts facility.
Yes, 12 or possibly 15 moving trucks, depending which article you read.
And they just left. And so they moved to Indianapolis, which is where the Colts are today.
Yeah.
But like even today, like if I'm talking like to my dad, like he will occasionally just like slip up and refer to the Colts as Baltimore.
Right.
And so, so Baltimore, that's a pretty historic franchise, and Baltimore's just without a team for a while.
Yeah. So because I think Irsay bought the team, but he was always this out of town guy, didn't care, and just decided one day, he's like, nah, I'd rather have this team in Indianapolis. So they pack it up. Yeah. Literally in the dead of night. Like they ship out all these trucks at about 10 p.m., I think. And they all split up and they avoid the main highway to Indianapolis until they can reach Indiana state lines. And when they get to Indiana state lines, they receive police escorts to Indianapolis.
It's a kind of operation I just don't think you could pull off today, just with like how accessible everything is with like social media and how quickly information can be shared.
Yeah, so this is also kind of just funny, but like, we had the story about the federal government seizing the guy's car because he owed money. It's like, can they do that? Mm-hmm. And then there's a real, can they do that? The reason that they were doing this all under dead of night was because I think there were rumors. So the Maryland State Senate had signed a bill permitting the city of Baltimore to seize the team via eminent domain. And that's why he's like, we got to get the fuck out. I didn't write this all in because I was like, this is not the story we're telling, but holy fuck, this is amazing. On a legal sense, it was probably not enforceable to seize the team like that, but they basically just saw the writing on the wall and were going, okay, Indianapolis, bye.
The Baltimore Colts being forced to stay and having to play their games under like National Guard supervision.
Yeah. Now, as you can imagine, the people of Baltimore held a deep grudge over this. Mm-hmm. So when the CFL came to town, they announced their new franchise as the Baltimore CFL Colts. Were you aware of this at all, by the way?
I didn't know that the Colts name had been reused in Baltimore.
Well, they tried to, but the NFL did not like this. They took the pretenders
they would like that.
They took the pretenders to court, and I think this is a bit ironic. They cite a national identity that has taken many years to build. Like, yeah, your identity that you built years on, or that you spent years building. And so the NFL wins an injunction against the CFL team. As retold in End Zones and Border Wars, this was the end result for owner Jim Spiros, is how I've heard his name pronounced.
He got to keep his logo, a stylized horse's head, but he had to strike the Colts name from the club's marketing and merchandising ventures, and even had to beep it out of a jingle that was playing on the radio. That's going to make it sound so much worse.
Yeah.
This led to predictable jokes about the team. The Baltimore fill in the blanks. The horse with no name. But in the collective conscience of Baltimore, it also cemented the CFL's team position as the anti-NFLers, as the underdogs who were taking on those pricks who stole Baltimore's team.
I think horse with no name's pretty good, honestly.
Mm-hmm. That's solid. That is some good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that beeped jingle exists for you to listen to, but I do have a different jingle, and this is the entire reason I've set up the audio again. Are you ready for the Baltimore CFL theme?
Yeah.
It was in very poor quality on YouTube, so I tried to clean it up a little bit with noise reduction. But yeah, I think in this one, there's no bleeps in this one. I think it might be apparent the ways in which they had to rewrite it, because there's someone in the comments saying, I have a tape of the original version of this before they were forced to rewrite it. All right, here we go. This is the Baltimore CFL theme.
Hello, listener, and welcome to the mid-reel ad. If you enjoy Canuck is a Slur, a podcast about Canadian culture, and you want to hear more of it more often, there is an option. The Canuck is a Slur Patreon. Signing up at any tier gets you access to Give Kelly Your Money. And joining an elevated tier gets you access to monthly bonus episodes. If that sounds good, you can sign up at www.patreon.com/CanuckIsASlur. And now, back to the episode.
Football is back. It's a brand new day. Now the town is rocking at the CFL game. Catch all the action on News Channel 2. Good gosh almighty. It's so exciting. Catch the CFL game. Yeah, Baltimore CFL game. Got more bomb and a lightning bolt. Come on, everybody, feel it in your soul. Football is back. Can you feel the heat? The tradition lives on. You got a front row seat. You're all invited.
Oh, very nice.
Exciting, catch the CFL game. Hey, on News Channel 2.
I've listened to that so many times. It's so good.
Is the chorus just "You're invited to the CFL game"?
Well, because I think they just are replacing Colts with CFL or something. Because you can tell at a certain point where they're saying, like, they have this line of lightning bolt and then feel it in your soul. Like, you can tell that was written to rhyme with Colts. And they just really quickly are like, we have to replace. It doesn't work with the number of syllables, but like.
They did the Mr. Brightside. Yeah, a lot of good things there. A lot of good 90s gear. A lot of good 90s hair on the women dancing. There was the nice little like beckoning the viewer with the single finger that was kind of sexy.
Yeah,
Also,
I will.
I think he said "Good gosh almighty" at one point, which was fun.
There's so much going on, but is that not just the most legally distinct song you've ever heard?
That song reminds me very much of when Rob Lowe was photographed at the Super Bowl, and he was just wearing a hat that said NFL. And it's
Yeah.
it's very much that. It's like, yeah, the CFL.
See, what rocks about this, though, visually, is that there are people wearing shirts that say Colts in it.
I didn't notice that, but
I know. I noticed it in like my third watch. You can find it on YouTube, but I'll upload to the Canuck as a Slur account this one where I've improved the audio a bit. And it's not only playing in the left channel. So
you're invited to the CFL game.
yeah, like it's, I can't put my finger on it, but it's just this, it's like music you would make for a movie or a TV show where you have to have, you're just like, yeah, we didn't get permission from the NFL to use the terms NFL or like the terms Colts in our movie. So we just quickly have to write this jingle that happens in the background where it's like, legally non-actionable things are happening.
Just getting sued by Sunday Night Football for using the term nasty showdown. It's like, yeah, that's the NFL's phrase. You can't actually use that in your song.
We're pretty sure we can, get an injunction for you to stop using the letters FL and CFL. We need that. God, I love that. It's so funny. Now, one thing that the team was able to retain from the old franchise was the lone element remaining that didn't move to Indianapolis, which is the Baltimore Colts marching band.
Now, there's a whole documentary about this. Maybe this came up in your research, but
I don't know if I saw the documentary or anything.
It's one of the ESPN 30 for 30 documentaries, and it's just about the old Baltimore Colts marching band.
Yeah, there's this thing. I think they say publicly, they're very dramatically, something along the lines of, "We will carry the flag for your team." It's just like, I will die for you in battle as your marching band.
We are Charlie Kirk. We carry the flame.
Yeah. You have my bow and my axe and my tuba. So they were, I don't know if they were forced to go by this. They were forced not to go by the Baltimore Colts. And what they chose to go by was the Baltimore CFLers. Really bad.
The Washington football team.
Yes. But there were some knowing winks. So in the stadium, the announcer would pause after announcing your Baltimore CFL, which would prompt the crowd to then shout Colts all in unison. Again, you can watch like their entire home opener on YouTube, and you can hear several times the crowd is just pumped and they're just going COLTS Colts on the broadcast like over and over. It fucking rules. But yeah, the team was a success at the gate, not just compared to the other, American expansion teams, but to the Canadian teams as well. Because going back, this whole adventure started with the CFL failing across the board to sell tickets in all of its cities, and all of its franchises were in trouble. And nowhere was this better exemplified than with this nameless team's first 2 games. In their debut, they played to just 13,000 fans in Toronto as they beat the Argonauts 28-20. And although they dropped their home opener against the Calgary Stampeders 42-16, they pulled in nearly 40,000 people as the cheerleaders were oh, fuck. Well, I guess we're watching this again. Or I can skip it.
Football is
skip it.
back. It's a brand new day. Now the town is rocking. After the CFL
Because the
game.
CFL is so funny.
Catch all the action on News Channel 2. Good gosh almighty. It's so exciting.
It's so
Catch the
exciting.
CFL
Oh man, he's just
game.
losing it.
Yeah.
Baltimore CFL game.
So much heart to say Baltimore CFL game.
Baltimore CFL game.
Yes, okay, their shirts say Colts on them, those big 90s hair ladies.
Come on, everybody, feel it in your soul.
The guy spinning the guitar really gets me every time.
You really, it's worth watching this video twice, truly.
There it is.
And the look she gives when she does You're All Invited.
Yeah.
What a masterpiece. What an accidental masterpiece.
You know what it reminds me of is the jingles for like usually local companies that have a song like with music, but it doesn't need to be a song. It's just words, but that has been put to music. It's what it reminds me of. It's like they just decided, okay, we need to say this and we need some music behind it. It doesn't necessarily have to work though as a song.
Yeah. So now we have the cheerleaders being symbolically unloaded from a truck from a moving truck into the stadium.
Yeah, they're being deployed on the battlefield here.
On the broadcast, you watch the truck back in. I think they wanted the whole team to come out, and for some reason they couldn't, so they had the cheerleaders come out.
The plan was from the Baltimore front office to have the players spill out of the van, but of course there is a game to be played here in just a few moments, so Coach Don Matthews could not go along with that.
And then you have the owner, Spiros, and the league commissioner, Smith, that's you, ambling in on horseback. A lot of teams with horse imagery.
I was gonna say, got to do something. We're going a little heavy on the horses, kind of like California going too heavy on the gold.
You get 2 teams called the Rough Riders and 3 teams with horse logos or horse mascots. So yeah, there's nothing interesting about a competently run season of football. So that's all we have to say about this team, really. The only other interesting thing that happened in 1994 was in the playoffs. And Ed Wills dedicates a whole chapter of his book to the BC Lions season. It's really a sports story for sports people in its tone. And that's kind of just not what we're going for here. So just the compressed version. The team finished 3rd out of 6 teams in the West Division. They upset their playoff opponents in Edmonton and then Calgary in very dramatic fashion, so they punched their ticket to the big game, which, as it happens, was being hosted in Vancouver that year. So again, the Grey Cup works like the Super Bowl. The city has decided in advance, right? So they actually get a chance to play the Grey Cup at home. The Lions, who had players with names as fake-sounding as safety Tom Europe and had recently been coached by the equally sounding Bob Obilovich, that's O apostrophe, like an Irish name, B-I-L-L, like the name Bill, and then Ovich, like a Slavic patronym. Bob Obilovich.
So bizarre.
Yeah, and it also features the talents of defensive back Les Brown, which is an outcome you can achieve with regular use of a bidet. Just to make this clear here, L-E-S-S is how his name is spelled. Les Brown.
It is spelled like
Yeah.
less. Okay.
Brown with an E, but Les Brown.
Okay.
Tom Europe also to me sounds like, yeah, when you're trying to come up with an alias and you're like, shit, I can't decide what accent to do. You're like, I am Tom Europe.
That's a name from that Japanese hero baseball thing where it generated American sounding names. It's like Sleeve McDykel.
Oh yeah, and Bob's and
Yeah.
Dugnut. You know
Yeah,
how
Bob's and
actually, but they weren't generated. You know how I think they got those names?
I know that there's like more to it, and like that original explanation isn't like the way that it happened. What was the real story there?
Well, I don't think this is proven, but there are several names in there that are so clearly one letter off from NHL players at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think what they did with a bunch of them is they just said, okay, we'll take a real name and flip one letter and it will sound realistic enough. So I think they grabbed from a pool of, I'm assuming the developer was just like, okay, we'll make a football game, we'll make a hockey game, we'll make whatever. So you could probably recognize some of these also as baseball players or as NFL players or something. But there was a player in the NHL called Ron Tugnut, which I think is where they got Dugnut from. You also have, I think you have a No Gilney in there, which is clearly comes from the name Alexander Mogilny, the Russian player. Yeah, there's a bunch of those that are like that. And like McDykel is clearly one letter off from McMichaels.
Right.
God, I love that list of names, though. It's so my favorite list of names, I'm going to say. So the BC Lions, many players on this team had limped their way there through a long list of injuries, but there they were. They were tied 23-23 with just over a minute left on the clock in the Grey Cup. Now, lining up to kick a 37-yard field goal for the BC Lions in their home stadium was a hometown Vancouver boy, the oldest player in the league, 40-year-old Louis Passaglia.
Hell yeah.
Vancouver boy, Vancouver team, Vancouver stadium. He's the oldest guy on the field. There's a minute left, right? There's a minute and some seconds left. But this is going to put them in the lead. The only thing standing between him and Grey Cup glory is, who do you think?
Is it, what's the guy's name? Dexter Manley.
It is the Baltimore CFL Football Club.
All right.
And Louis Passaglia kicking the ball wide and to the right. Oh!
Oh, hey!
Now, we do have to wind back a bit for a few notes on how it got to this point, with a first-year American expansion team going all the way to the thrilling final minute for the biggest prize in Canadian football. So for one thing, while the other new U.S.-based clubs had loaded up on young, untested talent and NFL veterans, the Baltimore legally distinct Colts had expressly sought to build a roster with CFL experience. This does not mean Canadian players. This means players who have played in the CFL. Because we kind of touched on some examples of this earlier. As similar as the two codes were, it was a different game played in a different way. Now, compared to all of the Canadian teams, Baltimore had another distinctive edge. They didn't have to follow the import rule, which mandated a minimum of 20 Canadians on, I think, a 46-player roster.
So, like, is that a rule that, like, all of the other American teams were exempt from also?
Yes.
Okay.
So this was an old rule. It dates back to that very first championship that was won by a Western Canadian team, because if this is going back to part 5, I think, but for a long time, Western teams could never win. The Winnipeg Winnipegs were the first Western-based team to win a Grey Cup in 1935. They had gone out and acquired an unprecedented 9 Americans for their roster for the season and dressed 7 of them for the Grey Cup game. Yeah, it's a bit hard to believe today, but Canadian teams pulling in American players was actually a meaningful problem for American clubs back in the 40s and 50s. I want to share this incredibly hacky piece of writing. This is from, it's sort of like I would call an enthusiast group called the Professional Football Researchers Association. A refresher for context on this quote. The IRFU, or they called the Big Four, that was the rugby football union that later becomes the CFL's East Division and is it today, technically.
May 1954 was a month of historic developments. The Supreme Court ruled that segregation of schools was unconstitutional. France surrendered to Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. The U.S. and Canada agreed to spend hundreds of millions on the St. Lawrence Seaway, linking the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean.
Damn.
And the NBC television network and the Canadian IRFU signed a $320,000 deal to broadcast Big Four games across America. Those are all the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Basically.
I mean, the U.S. expansion was sort of our Vietnam, wasn't it? Yeah, I just was like, okay, come on. Like the NBC showing proto-CFL games, France surrendering Ho Chi Minh.
At the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, Vo Nguyen Giap is just like trying to tune his little radio so he can pick up this Canadian football game he's dying to listen to.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. The Supreme Court is like, well, if we can't segregate Canadian American football, I guess we can't segregate schools either.
Right. Yeah.
There's just some crusty person who sees Canadian football on NBC. It's like, we never should have completed that Seaway. Look what it's done to our American football.
We told you. We warned you.
Yeah. So the numbers in the article are something like NBC deal would have meant that this one Canadian conference would have had like 120 stations broadcasting their games that year. and the NFL only had like 18 affiliates in 1954, something like that.
That's what we're going to do for the mega episode we invite you on our show. We're going to do one about the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Hell yeah. I hope someone jumps a car over it. The exact numbers for the import restriction have evolved over the years, but a quota system is still in place to this day because there's no getting around it. On aggregate, Americans are better than Canadians at gridiron football.
Mm-hmm.
The CFL even has a special trophy for most outstanding Canadian to, make us feel better.
Aww.
I forgot about that until I was on Ray Elgard's Wikipedia. I'm like, he was a 3-time winner of the most outstanding Canadian. Okay.
Is it named for a person or is it just called the most outstanding Canadian trophy?
No, it's just most outstanding. They have like most outstanding. I think they have most outstanding offensive, defensive, and Canadian player. I think it's like the three MVP categories.
The three types of football players: offensive, defensive, and Canadian.
Yeah, you make all your Canadians play in special teams. It's like, okay, we have to put you on because of the quota, but you're doing field goal defense.
So that type of quota, I think, because that's similar to some. I think like European soccer leagues have similar quotas on how many foreign or like how many non-EU players you can have on your roster. I think.
It wouldn't surprise me because I'm aware of this quota.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's technically a restriction on all foreign imports, but what that really means is Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Although I was surprised when I was like looking at football in other countries and going, oh, there still is, I think, a Mexican American football league. The game of American football, but it's a Mexican league.
I know stuff like that has existed, and I know that some like high schools, I think specifically in northern Mexico, they do have pretty robust high school football.
So there was one year, I don't remember, I want to say 2012 or something like that. Or I think it's 2022, is really recent, where the Mexican American Football League had more teams than the CFL. I think it's since contracted, but I don't know the exact answer why the CFL chose not to impose the quota on the U.S. teams. It was probably a combination of reasons, and like they obviously wanted to make things as team friendly to the expansion teams. Like they need their expansion fees, they want their interest.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make some concessions. Like, okay, we'll force you to play the Canadian rules, but we won't force you to like field Canadian players, especially when presumably as expansion teams you're going to have a hard time competing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Baltimore proved, no, we will not.
All good over here, boss.
Yeah, so the decision was made back when it was just Sacramento entering the league as well. So I think they all just kind of went, well, now we have to, we're not going to apply the import rule to them in their second year. I guess we won't apply it to anyone else. But yeah, the whole import thing was very contentious just in general. There's a lot of other weird factors too that flow downstream of that, where because there's just a smaller talent pool of Canadians, it artificially inflates the salaries of Canadian players.
Mm-hmm.
All this we talked about was all in the air leading up to the Grey Cup. The BC Lions had their full complement of Canadians. The Baltimore CFLers had 0. It was a heady time for petty nationalism. Inside the BC dressing room, this had even come up. One of the foreign imports on the squad, James Jefferson, went as far as to tell his Canadian teammates that they should be grateful toward the club's American talent for bringing them to the final. He said this in a locker room for a team that was noted for regularly getting into fistfights with each other. And Ed Wills claims that Jefferson himself had fought a Rough Riders fan in Saskatchewan a few weeks earlier. I wasn't able to confirm that. I couldn't find a news story about it. Wills also claims that Jefferson fought somebody in a bar back in Vancouver that same night, like fought somebody on the field in Regina, a Saskatchewan fan, flies back to Vancouver, goes to a bar and gets into a fight. And what he says is that the reason he was caught was that his big W on his ring for his Winnipeg Blue Bombers Grey Cup win he'd had previously left a W on someone's forehead when he punched them. Now,
very cool.
The Mythbusters taught me this is not possible. That is not how bruises work.
You can't imprint your ring into someone's face.
No, you cannot. Now, does this mean that it's not possible he got in 2 fights in the same day? He might have. Wills also recounts an anecdote after that exact game, the game where he fought the fan Saskatchewan. In this anecdote, Louis Passaglia challenged Jefferson to a fight just outside the showers while stark naked, which I simply choose to believe.
Wait, what position was Jefferson?
He was, I want to say, another like a linebacker or something.
Okay. Yeah, it's some balls on the kicker to challenge your linebacker to a fight.
That's what I was thinking, where I believe this guy he played a position, I want to say a defensive position, that made me go, oh yeah, this guy's probably really strong and scary. Mm-hmm. And your 40-year-old nude kicker is challenging to a fight. And I'm like, I want to believe that guy is just that crazy.
That's like Sebastian Janikowski behavior. He was kicker at Florida State, then he kicked for the Raiders for a long time. Great kicker, phenomenal kicker, huge leg, but like also had a reputation for being a bit of a brawler. He liked to get drunk and get in bar fights also. Not your stereotypical kicker.
Kickers, I guess, are sort of maybe the goalies of football.
Mm-hmm.
You play the weird position.
Mm-hmm.
In any event, as the story goes, some of Jefferson's Canadian teammates beat him up for his comments, and supposedly you can see the bruises on his head when his helmet is off at one point in the Grey Cup broadcast. Now, I didn't go and verify this, but I invite the listeners to because, yeah, you can watch this entire 1994 Grey Cup on YouTube. Spiros, the Baltimore owner, got in on the villainy as well. His bold vision that he was publicly proclaiming for the future of the CFL included, as listed in End Zones and Border Wars, quote, standardized 15-yard end zones, no player quotas. The Grey Cup moved up a week to avoid conflict with American Thanksgiving, more expansion into the States, and a new name for the CFL. Now back to a cliffhanger. The ending of the 1994 Grey Cup was one that genuinely would not have happened in the NFL. In American football, a missed field goal from the 37-yard line would have, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, would have given Baltimore the ball at that same 37-yard line, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would also have given them 4 whole downs to get the ball downfield or the ability to run out the remaining clock. It's at least if they've been ahead, right? This example would work better if they were 1 point ahead.
Right.
But here in the CFL, they had to contend with the single point, our beloved Rouge.
Ah.
So we didn't really discuss how Rouges work in the modern CFL. This is a single point earned on a punt or missed field goal if the ball went through the end zone, or it's conceded if the team that catches the ball can't or won't bring it out. So when it comes to field goals, the Rouge is often criticized as, well, it's rewarding failure. But my counterpoint is, well, not if your opponents run the ball out. Just run the ball out.
Mm-hmm.
It's rewarding the other team not challenging you on it. So often when it's early in the game or they have a decent lead, teams are just going to kneel and concede the single in order to just, okay, you can have a point. We want the better field position, right?
Right.
In this moment, in a tied game for the league championship with barely a minute remaining, the Baltimore Colts, please don't sue me, they needed to run this ball out. And they did to the 2-yard line.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is shit that rules. It's like, yeah, you get the ball in your end.
With the goalposts in your offensive backfield, basically.
Yeah, so like I say, a lot of these rule differences actually come up organically over the course of what we're talking about. In the NFL, the goalposts sit on the back of the end zone, which is 10 yards behind the goal line. In the CFL, similar to rugby, the uprights themselves are over the goal line.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking on YouTube, you can see it. There's padding around the goalpost, and it is set maybe a yard back from the goal line, so it leans forward. Which, it does matter. If you throw a attempted touchdown pass and it hits the goalpost, it's like a dead ball.
Mm-hmm.
So without these same excessive clock killing abilities granted by NFL rules, NFL haters are very familiar with the clock wasting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The CFL has a way shorter play clock, so you can't really do that. And you also have one fewer down to waste time. So they can't even kneel their way to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
They try to run once, they get nowhere. They try to pass once, they get nowhere. It's a 3-down sport. Now they have to punt. This leaves the Lions with enough time to return that punt, tack on 2 more runs, and set up another field goal attempt, this time from the 31-yard line. As the commentators point out, too, from here, they could also try to just punt the ball all the way through the back of the end zone. And the CFL end zones are bigger. They're 20 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're confident your kicker can just punt the ball through the back of the end zone, you would get a game-winning single, which I think would rule. So they could do this. They don't. So once again, it's Louis Passaglia.
All right.
Staring down an implacable star-spangled wall of hamburger, bald eagle, and really punchy third thing. I never really fixed that placeholder. Couldn't think of a good one.
A gun.
Yeah. Star-spangled wall of hamburger, bald eagle, and gun. Everything was at stake. As Ed Wills puts it in the book, quote, the Lions had to win. They had to win for the Rouge, for socialized medicine, for Don Cherry, end quote. Now, I would like to note all 3 of those things very much on their way out in 2025. And wouldn't you know it, he nailed it. Thanks to another Canadian rule that you can, indeed you must, always take the final snap when the clock hits 0, the winning score was tallied with 0 seconds left on the clock. A walk-off home run, if you will.
So if the ball has not been snapped and the clock hits 0, it doesn't end. You play that snap?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you can still, if you're winning, you can still do it as a QB kneel, but you can't start like having your fans raid the field with 13 seconds left. You have to do all your snaps properly until the 0.
Okay.
Which is something of a formality if you're just doing kneels, but it's really helpful if you just want to line up and not worry about the timing on your field goal. You just need to kick it.
Yeah.
And it means that you can kick this field goal with exactly 0 seconds and leave nothing. Your opponents can't even do like a kick return touchdown, right?
The clock thing reminds me, one of the rules I did like from the Arena League, I don't know if any leagues still use this, but like at the end of the game, if you're trying to run out the clock would only run on a play that made forward progress. So like you couldn't just snap it to the quarterback and have him kneel because that would still stop the clock.
Oh my God, please. Quarterback kneels are so fucking stupid. I hate them.
And so end of the game, if you're up, like you had to at least hand it off, to a running back and make some sort of forward progress to make the clock run.
Yes.
Because at the end of a lot of games, it's just, the quarterback kneeling it down for a minute. And it's like,
Yeah, I hate that. And that's what a lot of people correctly hate about American football. And the CFL's rules have much less egregious clock management, but there's still some of it. You will still get a team and like getting a first down. And then if it's like 40 seconds, yeah, you can definitely run it out with 3 kneels. But it's not nearly as bad in how often and how much clock gets killed. So the perfidious Americans, the Yankee Doodle Dandles, were sent home with their tails between their legs. Our game was saved. Our country was saved. Celebrations popped off worldwide, presumably. Bassaglia, the old bastard, pulled it off in front of his home crowd. And that is the kind of note you'd love to retire on. Although Louis instead played 6 more seasons, retiring at 46, with his 3,991 points, the most ever scored by an individual gridiron football player, nearly double that of the NFL's all-time leader, who has 2,002.
damn.
That's a lot of points to kick. Like, all of these gridiron football point-scoring leaders are all kickers. But yeah, I mean, that second 2,000 is all singles, obviously. Yeah, so great day for Canada and therefore the world. The next year, Baltimore won the Grey Cup.
Damn. This is just a huge blind spot. Like I had no idea that an American team had won the CFL championship. I don't think I'd ever heard that before.
You hadn't?
No, I don't think I'd ever heard that before.
Oh, yeah. They extremely did.
I was like vaguely familiar with the idea that there had been American teams in the CFL, but I did not realize that they had won anything.
Yeah. So yeah, the next year, 1995, after a slow 2-3 start, Baltimore, they were now branded as the Stallions. They simply literally never lost again. They finished the regular season 15-3, and thanks to this larger league, so the way the CFL playoff works is it's like a 3-team playoff. The team that finishes in first gets a bye. So you will play 2 playoff games max instead of 3, right? This was the only year that they had enough teams for a 4-team playoff in each division, right? Meaning that everyone had a 3-game route to get to the final. There were no byes. So this makes them the only team to ever win 18 total games in a season.
Wow.
Now, again, you could do this today by winning 16 or 17 or 18 games in the regular season and, going to the playoffs. I actually did double check that nobody had beaten their mark. And there was one team, there's a few teams that have gone 15-3 and then won 2 games to win the Grey Cup. So they've done the same thing, but they can't actually tie that record. And then you had one Toronto team that was 16-2, and then they just lost in the playoffs. So, whoops. So the Stallions also, in that 1995 Grey Cup, they just win handily. They win 37-20. Like, it's not close. People have argued that the 1995 Baltimore Stallions, with 0 Canadians on the roster, were the best CFL team ever assembled. In 1996, they were gone.
Aw.
So what happened to the Great American Experiment? Well, for starters,
they loaded up in the middle of the night and they left.
Pretty much. So what happened was everything we've already discussed happened, right? At worst, teams, total shit shows. At best, American fans outside of Baltimore just don't really take to it. For the 1995 season, where they win the Grey Cup, the Las Vegas Posse, like we said, they were one and done. They folded already. The Sacramento Gold Miners had moved to San Antonio and became the Texans, and the league added 2 new teams in the Deep South, in Memphis, Tennessee, and Birmingham, Alabama.
Nice.
So in 95, they actually had 5 American teams, and they restructured the divisions, instead of being East and West, of being the Canadian and American division. which also basically guaranteed an American team playing in the Grey Cup that year. Like the first year, Baltimore had to beat opponents to get there no matter what.
Right.
The second year, it was going to be an American team playing for it, which was not that far off from that owner who was proclaiming like, oh yeah, I think it was Fred Anderson in Sacramento saying, oh yeah, 93 is going to be the last year it's East versus West. And if this had continued, 94 would have been the last year it was East versus West. So like so close and yet so far. These two last teams, there's much less about them that's worth our attention. Even in the book, he goes, yeah, there's not as much to say about these teams. But this passage regarding the Memphis Mad Dogs demonstrates the most exceptional example of a problem that many American stadiums had, and even some Canadian ones still have the problem, which is that the CFL field is longer and wider than the NFL's.
The Mad Dogs worked around their space issues by adding 7.5-yard strips of artificial turf to either side of the playing field. That was supposed to make the field 65 yards wide, but when someone from the league paced it off, they found the field was 63 yards wide. As for the length, it claimed to be the standard CFL size 110 yards, but when the same CFL guy is a very non-formal name, brought out his tape measure, he discovered the yards were actually 33 inches.
Yeah.
So they had their yard measurements wrong. Like all of them is what he's saying.
But like intentionally wrong because it couldn't fit.
Okay.
I'm going to read the next paragraph. It is going to describe the photo that I'm freeing your eyes up to look at. So you'll be able to see that patchwork field that it's describing. Here's the passage. The end zones, meanwhile, were 7 yards deep in the corners and some 14 yards deep behind the goalposts. Concrete grandstands also jutted out into the corners, making every trip into the red zone a life-threatening experience for receivers. Yeah, doesn't that look fucking dangerous?
If you're catching one like deep in that end zone, you are like feet away from a concrete wall.
Yeah.
With like corners and stuff. Like it's not a flat wall.
So you can see where the light green becomes the dark green. So that's where I think the NFL size field, which I'm guessing is a natural grass field or just a different artificial turf, turns into the artificial turf they had to lay down around it to make it wider.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly what it looks like. It's not a subtle change.
So you've got an alternate angle of it here. And if you look at the sidelines there too, where it's, 10 yards out, that's even closer to the concrete.
Yeah, this is like basketball game sideline space for a football game.
Yeah.
And like there's that one, like by the 10-yard line on the far side of the field, that corner is like feet away from the playing surface.
Yeah, genuinely, it's insane. And so someone told me this. I couldn't verify it anywhere, but when we go back to when the American game was so dangerous and they're discussing ways to make it safer, one of the proposals was to make the field bigger, right? I believe, or at least I'm led to believe, that's one of the reasons the CFL field got bigger, although it is interestingly very similar to the rugby union dimensions. I didn't really look into the history of the field size, but 110 yards is very close to 100 meters, right? But according to this person online, so take it with a grain of salt, but they said the reason that the American teams didn't agree to a larger field back in, the 1890s or whenever it was that Harvard, I think there was the example they gave, had already built their stadium out of concrete and they couldn't have fit a bigger field in it. So they're like, nope, we're not expanding the American field. And then 100 years later, this is what happens.
This is amazing. This looks like trying to play a pickup game, like between your houses when you're a kid, like with your friends. And like you don't quite have enough space and you have to be really careful because there's like a stump over here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like going way fucking back to that 19th century thing about, the playing field gradually appeared as the students were removing stumps from the quad. Then they get a playing area. Yeah, it's, or those British schools where it's like, oh, the game improved once they drained the swamp. And now it is in the 1990s, they're going, okay, you are now playing in a fucking rhombus-shaped end zone.
And like as a wide receiver, like any sort of receiver, tight end, whatever, it's like so much of those, especially, close into the red zone, like so much of that's timing and knowing where your feet are when you're trying to make these plays. And like you're in this like trapezoidal. It's
shaped like home plate, basically.
Yeah, it's
a really wide home plate. If you're just listening, it is not only can they not fit the entire 20-yard Canadian end zone, because the Canadian field is 110 yards instead of 100, they can't even fit an NFL-sized end zone in there. So the narrowest parts on the edges are 7 yards deep, which is shorter than an NFL end zone at 10 yards. That is not very much end zone in the corner.
Compound that also, if you're an American player trying to play on this, it's like the end zone is all fucked up at the back, and plus you have the uprights in the front of the end zone. So it's like that's really congested in there.
Yeah. The uprights being in the way is much more pressing, I would imagine, in this particular stadium.
That's an extra linebacker that can't be moved.
Yeah, and you've got an extra player on the field.
Yeah.
Now, would you believe that this team, the Memphis Mad Dogs, finished last in the league in scoring, but also allowed the second fewest points against?
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Because no one is scoring, because it's terrifying and there's no room.
You've got a very large extra defender and they have less space to score in.
Yeah.
The perfect home field advantage.
There is, I believe, from looking on YouTube, there's at least one Memphis Mad Dogs home game you can watch, and I'm going to watch it, I think, just to watch how tentative people are in the end zones. God, it's so fucking funny.
Like, there's no padding. There's no padding at all. Like,
yeah, they couldn't even throw up cushions. I'm pretty sure that's just sheer concrete.
Like wrestling mats or something would have probably helped.
Something. At this point, it probably would have been better to say when you play in Memphis, you're going to play on an NFL field.
Yeah.
Like, just use a smaller field. Something.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nuts. But yeah, this genuinely happens with some, I think, depending which stadium they played out of, Toronto had like 15-yard end zones at sometimes. And in Montreal's Olympic Stadium, Edmonton's Commonwealth Stadium, because they were built, so like Edmonton, they were built for the games they're named after, right? The Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games in the 70s, which meant that they built running tracks inside them. And running tracks have a fixed size, right? Which you can almost fit an entire CFL field in, but the corners have to be rounded. So in Commonwealth for the longest time until I think in the last few years, they just took out the track. They're like, we haven't used this since the 70s. We don't need the running track. But they had a slightly rounded end zone corner for decades. And there's a picture of how they did more around, which is they just painted part of the track green. So
classic.
The CFL field is too big even for some CFL stadiums. So Danny McManus, the Lions quarterback who'd come in relief to help drag his team across the finish line at that last Grey Cup, went on a record calling this a lawsuit waiting to happen. His coach in BC dubbed it atrocious and grumbled, quote, "That's what we do for expansion fees." Even Memphis's coach was grumbling, although his primary concern was that he hated the Canadian rules and seemingly refused to learn them, telling the Canadian media that the fans were, quote, "just not comfortable seeing rouges and guys moving all over the field before the snap," end quote. I'm uncomfortable with the backfield motion of the CFL.
It keeps me up.
So for any people who understand American football, nobody else is going to care about this, but when you can only have one person in motion before the snap in the NFL, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can have multiple people in motion, but they both have to be set before the snap if you have multiple people moving.
Yeah.
If you have one person in motion, he can be moving laterally at the snap.
So in Canadian football, I believe you just need your linemen on the line. I think you just need 5 on the line, and then anyone else can be moving as much as you want. It rules.
That's pretty cool.
Because the reason the motion restrictions were added was because of those mass plays in the 1890s where they were like, we can't have all this forward momentum before the play starts. But we've solved that problem. So
right.
So this same Memphis coach, I actually don't know where he's from or what his accent is, but that's one I picked. He went on to say, this will be good in a Southern accent though.
"Half the people here couldn't even spell Saskatchewan, much less know where the hell it is. We need more American teams in the CFL. We need to give our fans American rivals. We can't have any real rivalries with teams in places called Saskatchewan or Ottawa."
I mean, probably not completely by accident that he picked 2 places with Indigenous place names.
Well, and again, it would be one thing for him to say we can't have rivalries with Saskatchewan or Ottawa, like the sense of, oh, these are just not cities that naturally have this antagonism. But the way that it's places called Saskatchewan or Ottawa is like, it seems very anti-Indigenous, I guess. Or
we need to play against real American-named cities like Chicago or Milwaukee is also one.
Milwaukee, yes.
Yeah. Massachusetts. All right, so next I'm going to force you to look at something even more upsetting than that field, which is the Mad Dogs uniforms. Do you want to describe what you're seeing?
Also, this guy's name is Danton, or
Danton
maybe it's
Barto.
Maybe it's Danton. Danton Barto. Danton Barto. His name is like
I'm a Tennessee gentleman, Danton Barto.
Danton Barto, it's like a,
It's a Star Wars name.
it's like a fake palindrome, like something that sounds like it would be a palindrome, but it isn't. Danton Barto, he's the number. I don't know where to start. The helmet. Okay, let's start with the helmet. The helmet.
We started with Danton Barto.
The helmet looks pretty normal, all things considered. It's a normal looking helmet. He's got like almost a full cage. Looks like a tough guy.
Yeah. It's kind of a shit dog logo, but whatever. It's fine.
Here's where it goes to shit is the actual uniform, the jersey. Two main things dominate the front of this jersey. One is the number, which is offset. It's like over his heart. It's not in the center of his jersey.
Yeah, it's on the nipple.
And then the lower right quadrant.
Yeah, the appendix.
Is occupied by this dog logo that, I don't know, it looks a lot like a logo that like a minor league baseball team would have. So I guess that's kind of appropriate given like the type of league this is and the type of team. Yeah, and then like the other two quadrants of the jersey are just bare. There's nothing there.
Yeah, it's just so plain. It's offensive on so many levels.
Horrendous looking jersey.
It's kind of hard to tell from the angle. Maybe it is the same image, but it looks to me like the helmet, the jersey, and this card, the player card, have three different drawings of the dog on them almost.
Well, they do. I was going to say the color is so different in the logo on the card.
The color is for sure different, yeah.
And what's on his jersey. And then it looks like the helmet is more of a yellow. That is a strange looking jersey.
Yeah.
Also, his left arm is just so thick. It looks,
yeah.
I don't know if it's the angle. Danton Barto.
Danton Barto. Oh, what a name. Right, so... Now, thankfully, these only lasted one season before the team folded, as did their expansion partners, the Birmingham Barracudas. This was another solid team. They finished 10-8, but they had one critical flaw. Do you want to guess what that was?
This is Birmingham, right?
Yes. That's the correct answer. The answer is they were in fucking Birmingham, Alabama.
Well, I was going to say if they're in Birmingham, they're probably playing at Legion Field, which is like an old shitty stadium.
Well, they played out of the same stadium as the University of Alabama Crimson Tide.
In Tuscaloosa?
Or maybe at the time they were both playing out of this one, because Legion Field sounds familiar.
Because University of Alabama at Birmingham plays there. But yeah, the Crimson Tide may have had to play there at some point in the past.
I mean, you can pull up the Birmingham Barracudas if you want on Wikipedia. Might be able to... Well, actually, don't do that yet.
I'm still on Danton Barto's Wikipedia. He did some head coaching in the Arena Football League.
Mm-hmm.
He did some coaching. He died in August 2021. So rest in peace, Danton L. Barto.
El Barto. Yet another Simpsons joke you can't appreciate. But there's literally in this hostel, there is somebody did a mural of the Simpsons on the wall, and there is a painting of, I believe it is, Bart is spray painting the wall with El Barto. I'll put that in the slides.
Yeah, Danton L. Barto.
Yeah. Oh my God. It says in the book they were playing out of the same stadium as the Crimson Tide, or as a college team. I might have written Crimson Tide wrong.
Oh, okay.
They were able to draw crowds as high as 30,000 in July. Not that bad. And then as soon as college football came into season, these numbers crater. So on September 17th, they thrashed the Rough Riders 40-9 in front of barely 5,000 fans.
5,000?
They go from 30,000 to 5,000 because college football started. There's an anecdote of the book of they're having a Tuesday afternoon practice or something, and this coach sees people in the parking lot just hanging out, and they're like, "Oh, are they excited about us?" And they goes up to talk to the guys, and they were just getting ready to tailgate that weekend for the college game. Very sad.
I did check on this, and yes, Legion Field, so it did serve as the primary venue for the Alabama Crimson Tide home games until the late 1990s. So there was a time, I guess, where the Crimson Tide was playing there. I did not know that.
Vindicated. Yeah, like even I know, like that's just one of those college teams where you know the name because they're like a famous college team. Like they're a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps the most damning passage of all regarding this team comes from Commissioner Larry relaying a conversation he had with the Birmingham Barracudas owner's wife.
She said, "Mr. Smith, I think you're a great salesman, but my husband's going to lose $10 million this season, and he was going to buy me a ranch with that money," Smith recalls. "I started to get a bad feeling about then."
The first 10 times I went by that quote, I thought she said, "Mr. Smith, I think you're a great businessman," which well, clearly not. But she says, "I think you're a great salesman," which feels like a backhanded compliment. Like, well, you're a good liar, but my husband is losing $10 million. That's my ranch money.
Yeah.
Also, fuck you and your ranch money. What I will say about the Barracudas is they had a decent color scheme, as you can see here. I mean, we've seen the light blue and white in this still small league, but they got light blue, white, and orange is kind of a fun choice.
It's like similar to the Dolphins, but they have black helmets instead.
And a kind of cool stylized fish on them.
Mm-hmm.
Their uniforms looked all right from this angle only.
Oh, no.
Viewed from the front, a familiar problem manifests. Yeah.
What is... Do other Canadian teams have their uniforms like this? Why are they doing this?
Well, so to me, this is the 90s. So I would say for sure any fans of ice hockey or basketball will remember what 90s jerseys means, and that's these weird, yes, you have a gradient on your jersey because now, Photoshop 2.0 has come out and you can use that. I don't know how to describe why the logos look worse, but it's such graphic design is my passion shit.
The Mad Dogs one is strange because the dog's neck is like at the belt, so it looks like the dog is coming out of his pants.
Well, same with the CUDA is kind of coming out of the pants.
Yeah, so it's like there. Also, it's just funny that it says CUDAs, but it's a huge logo at the bottom. It's a massive logo.
Yeah, so they're both coming out of basically their hip pocket in front of their appendix.
Mm-hmm.
The CUDAs also have an off-center number, but this one is over the right chest because the logo is more angular and pushes it to the right chest instead of the left chest. If you are familiar with the hockey jerseys, it's like the LA Kings Burger King jersey was one of these. Oh, you can look that one up. You'll love it. There's a really bad St. Louis Blues jersey. They all had angles. It was always about asymmetry and angles. There's a really bad Toronto Raptors jersey. There's a bunch of basketball ones I don't know offhand, but 90s uniform design. If you know it, you know it.
I'm looking at the Burger King jersey right now.
It's so bad, right? But it's also that left to right asymmetry, right? It's thinking in diagonals, which thankfully just we got over because it almost never works.
And it makes it look like they're wearing a sash of some sort.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
To what extent some of these teams could have held on longer under certain conditions is a question that was rendered academic when the real hammer came down. And that happened before those 1995 playoffs even finished. The one thing that could truly wipe 5 American franchises off the CFL's board in one swipe was the Death Star of gridiron football, the NFL. The Baltimore experiment's own success was, in a big way, a huge part of its own undoing. Larry Smith explained this as well.
I met with NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue. They weren't too thrilled with us being in the States. I said, we have to do this in order to survive. We won't encroach on any of your major markets. Then we went into Baltimore and that pissed him off.
It's real don't talk to my ex areas. Like, no, I don't want her anymore, but if you fucking text her.
Paul Tagliabue, I think, just recently passed away, like the last few weeks or so.
Oh, wow. I was going to say Tagliabue sounds like somebody who's obsessed with a country that I've never heard of. On November 6th, before the CFL even played the division finals, let alone the Grey Cup, the owner of the NFL's Cleveland Browns announced a deal that would see him start up a new franchise in Baltimore. The actual transaction is too complicated to get into, but it ended up being a weird hybrid between a relocation and an expansion. And that's the reason there are both the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens today. Regardless of how it unfolded, the announcement itself meant that Larry Smith's grand experiment was dead in the water. The Stallions could not hope to compete in that market. Per Smith, on November 13th, the day after Baltimore beat San Antonio to advance to the 83rd Grey Cup, quote, I got a call from the remaining American owners and met them at the Toronto airport. They said, we'll pay our bills. Oh, no, the Americans are saying this. Quote, I got a call from the remaining American owners and met them at the Toronto airport. They said, we'll pay our bills, but we're done. It was that fast. It was kind of sad. End quote.
Aw.
It was kind of sad. It didn't help that 10 days later, the news broke that the Houston Oilers would be relocating to Tennessee, but first, since Nashville Stadium was not yet ready, they'd start playing in 1997 out of the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, which would have dealt an extra death blow to the Mad Dogs. But ultimately, it didn't matter. It was the Ravens that quoth nevermore to the American CFL.
Oh. See, this is interesting because, like, you mentioned that this is kind of all tied up with these NFL teams moving and expanding, like with the Oilers moving to Tennessee. That's a little bit before we would have moved to Tennessee because we were there right when they became the Titans, when they rebranded and restructured like the same franchise, but just with a whole new thing. You know, I guess I don't think oil was as popular. And we were there when that happened. So I remember being excited as a kid. That was like before I was actively watching football. So I didn't really know what was going on. But I remember the Titans, you know, getting to the Super Bowl and losing on that agonizing, like 1 foot short of the end zone.
Haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens began play the very next year, and in their 5th season in 2000, they won it all. Among them, a throwaway name from earlier in this episode. So for trivia's sake, O.J. Brigance is the only person to ever win a Grey Cup and a Super Bowl for the same city.
That is an excellent little sports factoid.
Absolutely. I'm going to say the only person that ever will, unless something happens in Toronto, but I doubt it.
That's the kind of thing that would like win you bar trivia, knowing that little factoid.
I mean, a lot of bar trivia teams wouldn't even be able to name the American team that won a Grey Cup, let alone the player that won both. But hey, good on you. A real double kill for OJ there.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah, he allegedly won the Grey Cup. Nobody actually watched it. To his credit, Stallions owner Jim Spiros was tempted to stay and fight. He'd been planning to host the Grey Cup in 1996. But the writing was on the wall, and in February, he packed up the team and slid them into the vacuum in Montreal, where they adopted the branding of the defunct Alouettes. Then he sold them off to new ownership after one season. The team from Baltimore may be long gone, but they left an important legacy, being a piece of trivia to hang over the heads of Canada's most forsaken sports fans. Since those upstart Americans came into the CFL, won it all in their second season, and then never played a game under that identity again, many active teams have failed to reach the same heights. So this would have been punchier to podcast about this in 2018, but for a long time, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers had not won a Grey Cup more recently than the Baltimore Stallions. They failed to do so in an 8 or 9 team league from, I think, 1989 was when their drought started, until 2019. 2019 being also the year that the Toronto Raptors finally won a cross-border championship.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, and then the Blue Jays almost did it this year.
So close. Yeah, so the Blue
Literally
Jays, they won
an inch away.
Yeah, I was ready to write into the script, however, based on how the Blue Jays did in the World Series, but they did not break the curse of the Baltimore Stallions. Because they won their second World Series the year before Baltimore began to play. So back in the CFL, counting from 1995 onwards, the Hamilton Tiger Hats have the same number of Grey Cups as the Baltimore Stallions. They have not won since 1999. Again, 8 or 9 team league. Yeah, Hamilton has been the most overall bad team, I think, in the CFL in the past 30 years. And there was a fluff piece about the owner the one time, and just looking out over the field forlornly, and he's like, oh yeah, 2 years in, still losing football games. I can't relate to that at all with as a podcaster.
It's so funny to me that the Tiger Cats are a bad team, because that's the CFL team that I have known about the longest. When we were kids, we were on a trip in Canada, and I remember my brother got a pennant to hang on the wall, a Hamilton Tiger Cats pennant.
Oh, really?
I guess I always assumed that, if I even know who this team is, they're probably good, if they're in the CFL. But that's very funny to learn that they're not.
They've been better the last, 6 or 7 years or something. I think they lost in the divisional playoff this year, or they're not as bad. They made it to the Grey Cup for the first time in so many years. A few years ago, they've lost, I think, 2 Grey Cups recently.
I like when they have the NFL games in London and they interview people on the street, because people will just show up, regardless of teams. They'll just be in whatever NFL gear they have. And they'll be asking people on the street, how did you pick your NFL team? There was one guy who's like, I watched a documentary about the Buffalo Bills and, the perennial disappointment. It made me really want to root for them.
Oh.
And then others are just like, I like the colors. It's like, okay, well, that's a good enough reason to, choose a team.
That's great. Yeah, it's a great reason.
But that might end you up with going for the Jacksonville Jaguars or someone.
So if you count the Stallions and the new Alouettes as one franchise, and I do because they have 5 Grey Cups combined. When we started this series in October of 2025, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who have been eligible to compete for the trophy since 1921, had 4. They just won the Grey Cup, so now they have 5.
Congratulations.
They have tied the Baltimore Stallions. And the Ottawa Rough Riders, a team that has been gone almost as long as the Stallions, also still have more titles than Saskatchewan Rough Riders do. Yeah, so in fairness to the Raptors and the Blue Jays, not being able to win where the Baltimore Stallions could, they're much more outnumbered in those leagues, right? We don't have to be so fair to the 6 and later 7 Canadian NHL teams who have all collectively failed to win the Stanley Cup since Baltimore won the Grey Cup, despite 7 trips to the finals between them. 8 trips. It's getting hard to keep track.
Oh, no.
Yeah, 3 of those were my team, so fuck.
So when was the last Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup?
That was Montreal in 1993.
Oof.
And now for the ultimate insult. In 2025, I think you know about this because you alluded to it at the beginning and I had to bleep it as a spoiler. The CFL announced a sweeping series of rule changes. This happened during the writing of this. I started writing this thing, and I believe it was September 22nd. The CFL announced a set of changes unanimously agreed to by their board of governors, having consulted with basically no one. In 2026, Rouges will no longer be scored for kicks through the end zone only, and that's all kicks, right? Punts, kickoffs, field goals. Only kicks fielded and not carried out will now score you a Rouge. The play clock rules will also be modified in a way that it seems it's going to allow teams to drain more time without playing, like you see in the NFL. In 2027, the field will be shortened from 110 to 100 yards, as seen in the NFL. The goalpost will be moved to the back of the end zone, as seen in the NFL. And the end zones will be shortened from 20 to 15 yards, which is closer to the NFL's 10. I strongly suspect they have further plans to basically just eliminate the distinct Canadian rules altogether.
We're going to be adding an extra down.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like it's the direction that, because the fans were pretty, I would say, broadly not in favor. The players said they didn't know about it. I think it was BC's quarterback, who's an actual like Canadian star in the league. We don't get a lot of like star Canadian quarterbacks. Very vocally said that those changes were stupid and like no one asked for them.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're invested and interested in the Canadian game, it's like those are like all the things that make it distinct. Like when I think of it, I think of the bigger field, the deeper end zone, the uprights at the front of the end zone.
Yeah.
It seems like it loses some character in doing that.
And that's why I really like that quote from Fred Anderson, the American owner of the Sacramento Gold Miners, who said, you need to keep the distinctiveness of the game because as soon as you're being compared to the NFL, you're fucked. And I think he's totally correct in that if you decide to just NFLify, to Americanize all your rules, then you cannot beat the allegations of being, this is just a B league for the NFL. This is just minor league football. And I do not understand like who it's for. It's not going to draw in NFL fans in Canada or the US, I don't think. There are arguments that it's going to improve scoring, which I don't think was really an issue. It just really feels like a C-suite management decision, like those American coaches you would see in Memphis and stuff going, what the fuck are these rules? Why are they different? I don't like this. That misses the point of why it's interesting at all. Now, I mean, you could look at many of the past 9 episodes and say, well, the history of sports is constantly iterating, constantly copying off other leagues, and people whining about the rule changes and kind of being proven wrong in the end. But I say, this is different. Nuh-uh. Fuck you. I hate this.
Yeah, I mean, like it is.
I hate this a lot.
It is odd to see like two codes develop sort of parallel to each other for such a long time. And then to have them merge back together is a bit, I don't know. It's now that the sport has its own identity, it is weird to give up some of that to play basically a lower level version of the same game as the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I think because when you look at these other examples, again, there's so many examples that came up in the series of the reason people tended to get on board with codes and standardization was we want to play these other schools. We want to play these other clubs and be able to agree on the rules and not have 20-minute. I think I left this out, but there was a funny thing in rugby where they were like half-hour arguments would hold up the game over what the rules were. If they had made changes like this in the 50s to say, we want to compete directly, we want to like merge with the NFL, or we want to play games between Canadian American teams where we want to be competitive, it would have made more sense. But to me, in 2025, when everyone knows talent-wise, yes, you're the B League. You are where players go if they can't make the NFL or are otherwise unsuited to the rule differences. One of the reasons that like Doug Flutie, who is one of those guys who played in both leagues, was said to flourish in the CFL was that like the game was more conducive to how he played, and that's why he dominated the league when he played. I don't think he didn't win a Super Bowl. So if you think it sucks, if you've been moved by the pathos of the series and you think the CFL should not change its rules, email them. You can email them your feedback. I have been planning to do it for a while and I forgot to, but I don't know. Be like my dad. Write him a letter and say, I think this sucks shit and it's for no one. Save our Rouges. Hashtag save our Rouges. Get it trending. God, I love Rouges. You should be able to score a point kicking it through the end zone. It's fun.
Like, that's pretty impressive. Most people can't do it.
There was a really good point that Tony Collins makes in the book of How Football Began, where he covers all the codes. And when he talks about the GAA and why it succeeded, we talked about like the GA Sundays and just like the cleverness of the organization to say, we're going to make this a cultural force. We're going to make Irish people proud of their sport. And the point that Tony Collins makes in the book is this is a demonstration that leagues don't succeed or fail based on how good their rules are. They're based on the conditions that motivate people to play the game, to watch the game, to develop fandom and culture around the game. And this feels like it kind of flies in the face of that to say our league isn't popular enough. And like, true, it is struggling as it has been for 50 years. But to say, well, if we fix the rules, that will bring the people in. It's like, that's not what brings the people in.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to get this huge chunk of like American fans now suddenly enthusiastic for the CFL now that they play different rules.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see the appeal. To me, like the appeal of watching a Canadian game is, oh, look at all these silly Canadians and the funny rules they have.
Yeah. A lot of fans are going to stick with the team because it's from their city. If you're from Saskatchewan, you're going to cheer for the Rough Riders. But if you're from Montana and don't have a local NFL team, then you're just going to watch Seattle or whoever. You're going to watch whatever team you pick out of a hat to watch in the NFL because they're really good and competitive. You could argue this all day, but I don't think you're going to start watching the Rough Riders because now the rules are clearer to you and you don't have to understand what a rouge is because it's just going to look worse. I think you would have a better time, first off, not trying to sell the game to Americans, right? It's like you say, like how successful is the NFL going to be at selling its game to people in London and Germany? A limited amount. How successful is the CFL going to be selling to Americans? Not very. What you should be doing is figuring out how to just get young people into your game. And I think, I'm not a marketing person, I think you should just try to promote the uniqueness and the quirkiness and that it's literally a different sport you can watch.
Everyone just keep your footballs to yourselves.
Yeah. And also that I think the rules are just better. I think the Canadian game is more watchable. That might be my petty nationalist, but I basically like every single Canadian rule better as they were. So anyway, that's the rule changes. I think they suck. The last way I wanted to tie in the GAA, because as far as how much, again, the games never stop evolving. When I was listening to the Shite Talk, the Irish podcast I referred to before, they did an episode on a Gaelic football star, and they were talking about how in 2025, have you ever seen this? This was an Onion joke, I think, about how they're going to try to make like the FIFA World Cup more appealing to Americans. And they said, okay, we'll add a 3-point line. The GAA added a 2-point line for the kicks through the uprights. It's like 3 points for a goal in the association style net, 1 point for a kick through the rugby uprights. But if you kick it from 40 meters out, you get 2 points.
Cool.
Very late change for something like that. And I remember the host of this show saying, they were never really Gaelic football watchers, or at least the one guy was. And he said, I actually watched some games this year. It's actually kind of fun. The games are watchable now. So yeah, maybe that's a pro change point, but it was interesting to hear from someone say, again, this game that succeeded on culture was kind of unwatchable. And I actually quite like that they added the 2-point line. So yeah, that is all of the history that we have to talk about.
And I mean, thinking way back to where we were talking about like camp ball and Sewell and things like that in episode 1, we've come a long way, made a lot of progress.
Oh my God. Yeah. The fucking how hot and humid it was in Shreveport. And I was like, oh, we're finally back to very hot and sweating.
It all comes back to that.
Yeah. So do you want to give your plugs before we connect Strombo to this story?
Sure. First of all, I want to say, come on down to the Baltimore football game.
Oh my God. You want to play it one more time for old time's sake?
You could have it fade out to that instead of the Don Cherry.
Might be that, yeah.
But yes, so I am from Beyond the Breakers, a podcast about shipwrecks, loss, and lessons learned from maritime disasters. We do typically 2 main episodes a month and then 2 bonus episodes. We have a Patreon, so if you're interested in more of that type of stuff, we kind of expand out and we do some stuff that's not directly shipwrecks all the time, but it's more maritime related stuff. We are just finishing our 5th season. We will shortly have 2 episodes out on the German battleship Tirpitz. We are wrapping up our bonus series on the naval battles of the Guadalcanal campaign, and then we'll have 1 more movie episode as a bonus coming up soon. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff in the works. We're looking forward to season 6. We are in tentative stages working with someone to get some merchandise designs made. So we might have some stuff for you to put on your body
Hell yeah.
or in your body, depending on what we design.
Are you going to get Beyond the Breakers butt plugs?
They're Great Lakes freighter shaped. But yeah, so a lot of fun stuff happening with the podcast.
Wreck me, Edmund Fitzgerald.
I hope everyone has enjoyed listening to this. I've enjoyed this series. As a football fan, as someone who watches a good amount of football, this was really a cool way of interacting with the history and not just the rule changes, but like why those rule changes happened and what problems they were attempting to solve. I think that's the coolest part of this series, was looking at why did those differences develop, and how everyone's kind of trying to make the same type of progress, but doing it in different ways. That's cool.
Well, I will finally say it this time. Yeah, take your money out of the Canuck is a Slur Patreon. No, please don't do that. But put your money into the Beyond the Breakers Patreon, because Tanner, as a Canuck is a Slur patron, has paid for the privilege of being here for 9 very long episodes. So have pity on the man and buy his goddamn merch.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can put your money into the Canuck is a Slur Patreon. Take your money out of every single Patreon that you listen to and sign up for the Canuck is a Slur Patreon at the highest tier. I have been forgetting to mention on mic that our Patreon is 90% off for the month of December. So get your subscription in now, get 90% off. And if you subscribe at the highest tier, you can commission free bad art for me. And if you're already at the highest tier, give me your suggestions for the free bad art, because we're way behind.
Yeah, take down your monthly donation to Turning Point USA.
Yes, I've been meaning to say this. You know who you are, listeners.
And funnel it into Canuck is a Slur.
Yeah, I mean, that's my earnest pitch. If you have listened to all 9 episodes of this, you probably enjoyed it. So it is, as I've said before, my only source of income, and I would love to be able to keep doing it. It is a ton of work, which I hope showed up in the insane amount of reading I did for this, the insane amount of citations I have for this series. I'm very excited to talk about maybe some simpler things in the future.
I think also something that's going to go maybe underappreciated by the listener in this episode is the amount of movement and like moving around and setup and tear down you had to do, and internet issues, technical issues, all this stuff. But it was edited in such a way that I don't think any of that comes through in the final product. It sounds like a perfectly polished series. So yes, I think that was also an impressive behind the scenes feat in this series.
Yeah. Traveling and podcasting has actually been nightmarishly difficult. So one of those two things is going to stop at some point.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone on quite long with this extravaganza episode. So the only thing remaining to do is, of course, we have to connect Canadian media heartthrob George Stroumboulopoulos to our subject, which is, as you know, hundreds of years of history across like 15 different countries we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I decided would make the most sense, because the intention was, okay, I'm going to get Tanner on. We're going to talk about the CFL and like the history of why there's Canadian football, and like something fun about the CFL was the intention.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to connect George to somebody who is involved with every major franchise that's played in the modern CFL.
Okay.
Starting with the most boring, George Stroumboulopoulos has been photographed with TSN host James Duthie, who works with TSN panelist Milt Stegall, a legend of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Nice and tidy. Sports connection, TV connection. The problem here is it ruins the whole game almost immediately, because James Duthie is basically the main broadcast personality for the league as a whole. Like, he's just kind of our John Madden.
Mm-hmm.
So he can easily be connected to every team. And that's why we'll be continuing this activity without repeating any names in it.
Cool.
Now, that's not to say we won't reuse names from past series. So we already know that Strombo connects directly to the second most disgraced owner of the Toronto Argonauts, Wayne Gretzky. We're also familiar with Strombo's connection to Don Cherry, who was once offered a coaching job by Toronto Maple Leafs owner Harold Ballard, who, astute listeners will remember, also once owned the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Another hockey figure with Strombo on his Instagram is Edmonton Oilers star, for now, Connor McDavid, who has had many disappointing playoff exits at this point, but the first one was at the hands of the Anaheim Ducks, led by Regina's own Ryan Getzlaf, whose brother, Chris Getzlaf, stayed in Regina and played slot back for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Interestingly, Ryan won a Stanley Cup in 2007, the same year Chris won the first of his 2 Grey Cups, also bar trivia you can use. Strombo has interviewed a few prime ministers, including the forgettable and unelected Paul Martin, who called up a man named Norman Kwong in 2005 to nominate him as Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. If you don't know what a Lieutenant Governor is, you can look it up. Normie Kwong, as he's better known, was born to Chinese immigrants in Calgary in 1929. In 1948, 1 year after the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed, Kwong became the first Chinese Canadian to play football professionally in Canada and spent the majority of his career as one of the first stars of the team now called the Edmonton Elks.
So you guys up there also had a Chinese Exclusion Act?
Yes, I think that might not have been the official name of it, but yeah, we definitely had. Oh, we'll do episodes on our anti-Chinese racism.
Not that I'm surprised by, obviously Canada has its own dark history of, colonialism and stuff. That doesn't surprise me. But yes, it's a across the border handshake. We both have laws on the books about Chinese.
New York, hate the Chinese. No, never mind. Love exclusion. Another prime minister we've caught Strombo with is Stephen Harper, who in 2010 appointed the hero of our story, that is former CFL Commissioner Larry Smith, to a lifetime seat in the Canadian Senate. As we saw earlier, Smith rode a horse alongside owner Jim Spiros at the home opener of the Baltimore CFL Football Club.
That's a purely ceremonial position, right?
No. Our Senate it's like the House of Lords. It's an unelected Senate. You get appointed to it for life.
Oh, so you can just get appointed to it. Oh.
Oh man, the Senate. Yeah, no, that's the only way you get in it.
Okay.
Our very British stuffy, peace and good government slogan for it is the House of Sober Second Thought. But no, it literally. I don't want to get over my skis over how the Senate works. People have talked about reforming it. Actually, I think it's often right-wing parties have talked about reforming it, but yeah, we'll talk about the Senate some other time. So yeah, our former running back and CFL commissioner, Larry Smith, also with the Conservative Party, got a seat in the Senate. This is where things get tricky. Do we do as the CFL does and treat the broken franchises in Ottawa and Montreal as one thing? No, that's for cowards. Instead, we are going to treat the modern Alouettes as an extension of the Baltimore club and deal with those other teams as separate entities. That means we have to connect the original Alouettes who became the Concords before folding. The easiest way to do that is with just incredible Albrecht, who served as the Als general manager in the early 1970s. In 1986, Albrecht was named the GM of the Halifax Blues Senior Hockey Club, prompting a question as to what the crusty old football man knew about hockey. Albrecht responded with a laundry list of hockey men. I've had breakfast with Danny Gallivan, Dick Irvin, and Red Story. I've had lunch with King Clancy and Punch Implock. I've had dinner with Scotty Bowman, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe. He went on to name drop Maurice Richard, Don Cherry, Bob Barry, Sam Pollock, and Alan Eagleson. About half of all those names have come up on this show, and I doubt he was lying about all of them. So there's so many paths you can take through that web.
So, sir, it sounds like your experience mostly involves eating meals?
Yeah. Yeah, so for simplicity, we're going to take his word for it. We'll go with Bobby Orr, who's been on Strombo's show. Continuing with some hockey guys, Strombo has been around Sidney Crosby, who captained the Rimouski Oceanic to the 2005 Memorial Cup in junior hockey. There were a number of future stars in that tournament overall, although the biggest name on the Ottawa 67s I could pull was Jamie McGinn, who played over 600 games in the NHL. At the time they played each other in this tournament, the 67s were owned by Jeff Hunt, who later became one of the founding co-owners of the Ottawa Red Blacks. Yeah, what's interesting about doing this is it's so much easier than I thought it was going to be, and I think every one of these, there's some of these you might have to add another person in. Like, okay, did the player meet the owner? If not, the coach is definitely a connection. All the connections I did were within 3 degrees of separation. But now we get into the fun ones. Another big guest for Strombo was the famous Jackie Chan, whose third Hollywood role was a part in Cannonball Run 2. Also in this film's ensemble cast was Washington quarterback Joe Theismann, whose career-ending injury 2 years later traumatized many, including his teammate Dexter Manley, later of the Ottawa Rough Riders.
Ah.
Yeah.
The Theismann injury is one of the original, this is why they don't show replays of injuries anymore.
All right. So Strombo was recently with a pair of people named Jennifer and Chris, who were on a panel that he was interviewing for the documentary I Like Me, about a minor hero of these episodes, their late father, beloved actor John Candy. Candy, as we learned, did many favors for a minor villain of these episodes, Lonnie Gleiberman, briefly the president of the Ottawa Renegades. Yeah, a fun thing that is, it crops up in the book. So one of the many chapters that we completely skipped over was just the shit show of the Toronto Argonauts under Bruce McNall. Are you familiar with Bruce McNall and how he went to prison for being a fraudster?
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, because he was the owner of the LA Kings. There's a whole bunch of stuff about that and the ownership situation in Toronto, and it also fell apart because Candy died. But he was literally on set in Mexico filming Wagons East when he had a phone call about how he was saying he couldn't come back to Toronto for one reason or another, like to continue with the ownership group. I think it had to do with McNall going to jail. He died of a heart attack like the same night that he had this phone call. Sorry, it seems it was a few days before he died, going by Ed Will's account. So something that comes up in this book, as in many other places, but it's just John Candy was like incredibly nice, just like to everyone. And he was incredibly passionate about the Argonauts, and he was always doing media events with them and like staying up late, talking to fans and getting up early the next day. Like he was just, I've read literally nothing but good things about John Candy. Also being interviewed by Strombo on this panel, which is not reusing any people, it's just the same event, was another Canadian heartthrob, Ryan Reynolds. Reynolds teamed up with Dwayne Johnson for the 2021 film Red Notice, and The Rock, as we all know, played in one preseason game for the Calgary Stampeders. More bar trivia. And last of all, one of the biggest stars in Strombo's Rogues Gallery of Guests has been Harrison Ford. One of Ford's first roles after Star Wars was the 1978 war film Force 10 from Navarone, in which he shared scenes with action stalwart Carl Weathers. Weathers, maybe you knew this, played 8 career games for the Oakland Raiders.
I don't think I knew that.
He also played 13 career games for the BC Lions. Yeah, shockingly easy to connect him to every modern CFL team. Well, speaking of punchy placeholders, do you have anything really funny to go out on?
I'm going to be honest, I'm still thinking about the prank where someone put chicken bits on an owl and they pranked the guy so hard he had to leave town. That's been my most salient takeaway from a lot of this is, God, that was a really funny prank.
That is an all-timer. Yeah, until next time, everyone, Danton Barto. Yeah, that's definitely the end. And
you know the George Saunders book, Lincoln and the Bardo?
No, but
Danton and the Bardo.
I'm sure that's an amazing joke.
Football is back.
Like, I think those are coaches. What's he doing? He's doing the Turkish ice cream man with a football.
Catch all the action on News Channel 2. Good gosh almighty. It's so exciting. Catch the CFL game. Yeah, Baltimore CFL game. Got one bomb and a lightning bolt. Come on, everybody, feel it in your soul. Football is back. Can you feel the heat? The tradition lives on. You got a front row seat. You're all invited. It's so exciting. Catch the CFL game. Hey, on News Channel 2.
I remember the other Simpsons episode for a reference I couldn't write into the script because they talk about how when they had the Baltimore Colts home opener and they had all these old players come in, so they had like Johnny Unitas on the sidelines, and I was gonna be like, Johnny Unitas, that's a haircut you can set your watch to, but you wouldn't have gotten it. So anyway,